today for thanks to Jim Marshall from the fans of Minnesota and football fans all over the country. And here he is, number 70, the captain of the Minnesota Vikings, who has announced his retirement. This is his final home game. He has one more to go. He has never missed a Viking game. And over 47,000 people here in Minnesota honoring Jim Marshall as he rode around the stadium in a vintage convertible with his family. And of course, needless to say, Jim Marshall, his 20th year out of Ohio State of the NFL and 1 year in the Canadian Football League, has just been a tremendous influence on this community, George Coons.
Oh, he has. He's given quite a bit to the community. He's given a lot to the Viking charities, which had a fundraising drive. At that particular charity function, a Jim Marshall jersey with a number 70 went for $2,200, which they donated to the charitable cause. He's worked so hard for this community. He's such a beloved guy by the people here. It's only fitting that he have a tribute. You hear quite a bit about him. You see the appreciation even the Bills players have for Jim Marshall and the reputation that that particular man has.
We're delighted to have you aboard on this December 9th in Bloomington, Minnesota. And would you believe we are sitting up here in our telecast location in sport jackets, no coats. It's really not warm enough to put off the suntan oil, but certainly it's a gorgeous day, one like they have never seen on this date here in the Twin Cities area. The stocking caps, of course, out of the stands are very useful on a day like this, but normally they're moving snow, shoveling snow off the field, and they did have to dry the field out somewhat because a few days ago, it was very cold here, and the turf was frozen, and the cover was frozen to the turf. But that's all been taken care of as the Buffalo Bills have won the toss and have elected to receive.
Jim Marshall again starting for the hometown crowd in his second to last game, his last game in this particular stadium. And although Jim Marshall won't be around next year, they will be in the stadium until their new dome complex will be completed in 1982. And
they broke ground on that new dome stadium just a few days ago.
They broke a gas main, too, I think.
The new dome stadium is still a bit of controversy here in the Twin Cities, but as we said, they have broken ground. I believe there's only one possible obstacle that can stand in the way. But certainly everybody is anticipating a stadium that will hold some 65,000 with a roof on it in just a couple of years. All right, kicking off for the Vikings, Rick Danmeyer. And back for the Buffalo Bills, Keith Moody, 46, and Mike Collier, number 35. And add Lynn Willis, number 86, to that trio, as Danmeyer, a second-year man out of Sioux Falls College in South Dakota, which is not too far away, is ready to kick it away. It's 42 degrees in Bloomington, Minnesota, and here we go. At the 17, it is Willis. And he is out of bounds near the 41-yard line. Tom Hannon knocks him out of bounds. And Joe Ferguson and his offense comes on, featuring Curtis Brown and Terry Miller in the backfield.
Joe Ferguson, one more pass. He's the all-time Buffalo Bill leading passer.
And speaking of passing, how about this receiver core with rookie Jerry Butler, Joe Shipp, the tight end, and Frank Lewis, who's having a super year.
Super year. He needs 51 more yards to reach the 1,000-yard mark. Good mark for a wide receiver to get these days.
And the Buffalo offensive line, Ken Jones, Reggie McKenzie, Willie Parker, Joe DeLaLure, and Joe Devlin.
Much more solid this year than last.
First and 10 across the Buffalo 40. Curtis Brown. And Brown to the 43, getting about 2 to 3. Matt Blair, 59, the linebacker, making the stop along with number 77, Mark Mullaney. And speaking of the Minnesota defensive line, here it is.
Well, you can tell Dave Roller's in there, and James White, probably their best defensive lineman at this stage of the season. Mark Mullaney doing an equitable job. Jim Marshall's replacement, Randy Holloway, will see some action today also.
Second down, 7. In motion, Frank Lewis. This time, Terry Miller, the former Oklahoma State All-American, to the 48-yard line. He goes short of a first down by a couple, and guess who makes the tackle? Number 70, Jim Marshall. And George, you having played the game for so many years, as we look at the Minnesota linebackers, and this is a pretty good trio, but what is Jim Marshall thinking about right now?
Oh, he's thinking he's got 21 years of professional football. He's got 120 minutes to go. A large part of his life is over with. I'm sure he wants to give everything he has. I'm sure he wants to play in that last game next week and go out in these last 2 games a winner.
Third down, a short 3 for Joe Ferguson and the Buffalo Bills. To the air. Incomplete in the 45 of Minnesota. Frank Lewis, the intended receiver. John Turner, 27. The left cornerback had the coverage, and so Buffalo will turn it over on the punt to the Minnesota Vikings. And Rusty Jackson will come on now for the Buffalo Bills. Rusty Jackson, number 4, a third-year man from LSU. He has a punting average of 38.1 for the year, and he's kicked 10 out inside the 20-yard line. Longest punt of the year, 60 yards. Kevin Miller, 87, will be back for the Minnesota Vikings. No score. We have just started from Bloomington. A beautiful December day for football. Good hang time. Miller back inside the 10 at the 9. 15 and out of bounds inside the 20. Lynn Willis ran him out of bounds, and a flag was dropped on the play. A 43-yard kick by Rusty Jackson. So let's see what the flag is about.
It should be a clipping call down there, Merle. It looks like that was the indication to begin with.
Gordon McCarter, the referee, indicating that we do have clipping.
Penalty against the Vikings.
So the Vikings will start from deep in their own territory as Gordon McCarter will walk it off. The umpire is Gordon Wells, head linesman Bill Ross, the line judge Jack Fetty, back judge Ray Douglas, side judge Bill Quinby, field judge Armin Terzian.
Personal foul, clipping, number 58, receiving team during the return. First down.
Wally Hilgenberg was the man who was guilty of clipping. And how about this for a little razzle-dazzle as the Minnesota Vikings give a new look to the Buffalo Bills defensive unit. First and 10. Inside the 10. Ricky Young,
the ball carrier,
carries the ball for short yardage. The Minnesota backfield, Tommy Kramer, Young, Ted Brown. Good running backs, George.
Great running backs, complemented by a quarterback who's going to do nothing but get better. Kramer, has a possibility of going over 3,000 yards today, and one of 3 quarterbacks in the NFL to accomplish, NFC, to accomplish that this year. Wide receivers, what can you say about Ahmad Rashad? Complemented by Sammy White. Bob Tucker not throwing the ball a lot. Kramer not looking to his wide receiver that much this year. Or to his tight end.
Second and 9 at the 10. Kramer out of the pocket. And pursued and drilled out of bounds at about the 14-yard line. It was Isaiah Robertson, number 58, the veteran linebacker, and former Los Angeles Ram, who chased him out of bounds. So Tommy Kramer, not the scrambler that Tarkenton was, but he can run with the football. Tommy Kramer was born to throw it, though.
He sure was. He can roll out, and he'll roll out behind these people right here. Ron Yeri being called on a lot of holding penalties this year, so many, in fact, that at that recent luncheon, Ahmad Rashad claimed he was wanting to up his Nielsen ratings, therefore held a little more to get his name in front of the public.
Bob Tucker is back in as a tight end. Stu Boyd in for a play is out on 3rd down and 5 coming up for the Minnesota Vikings. Tommy Kramer, third-year man from Rice, is passed for 2,985 yards, so he's close to the 3,000 mark, as we have talked about. Had it at the 22-yard line. Rashad was the intended receiver, and the coverage by Mario Clark, number 29, the left cornerback, the 4-year man from Oregon. Shane Nelson, number 59, also there in the coverage. 4th down and 5, and Greg Colvin, number 8, is coming in to do the punting. Greg has an average of 40 yards per kick. Keith Moody and Lynn Willis, 46 and 86, are back as we look at Greg Colvin's work this year. No score. Greg Colvin from his goal line. Pops it good. He drills it back into Buffalo territory on the 42-yard line. And great coverage for the Vikings. Terry LeCount brought down, Keith Moody brought down by Terry LeCount almost immediately, and the Bills have the football for the second time this afternoon. There's no score in Bloomington, Minnesota, and we'll be right back. Thank you for the nice welcome to Bloomington, Minnesota. Merle Harmon and George Coons with you here, and it's kind of feeling out time, I guess. First possession, George.
It really is. You notice that especially the way Buffalo is playing defense. Minnesota wants to see exactly which way their defensive line is slanting. Right now, Buffalo's got the Minnesota defense to contend with.
43-yard line as Ferguson hands off to Curtis Brown. Brown trying to get to the outside, covered at the 46 by John Turner, 27, the left cornerback, and Matt Blair, number 59, the left side linebacker.
Turner on the tackle.
Matt Blair, there you see him, best all-purpose defensive player on this Viking ball club in all probability, a 6-year veteran from Iowa State. So it is 2nd down and 8 after a pickup of 2 yards by Curtis Brown.
2nd and 8 for the Bills.
11 minutes, 52 seconds to go in the first period. Joe Ferguson, who's over the 3,000-yard mark in passing this year. And Ferguson at the 40-yard line has Frank Lewis, number 82, and he took a pretty good shot. Ball just across the 40-yard line in Viking territory, and John Turner, number 27, the left cornerback, had the coverage and made the tackle, but a 14-yard pickup for Joe Ferguson. He's a yard away.
He's a yard away, and that sets it. It's his new 1,041 completion mark. He is now the Bills' all-time leading passer. Frank Lewis gaining on that 1,000 yards, and you can see for a lot more passes to go on number 27, John Turner of the Minnesota Vikings direction.
Jerry Butler splits to the right side, and he comes in motion back to the left. He can really burn you, the rookie from Clemson. Ferguson goes back to his running game with Perry Miller, and the former cowpoke from Oklahoma State is knocked down on the 38-yard line by Jeff Seaman, number 50, the middle linebacker, and Tommy Hannon, number 45, the 3-year man from Michigan State, who's the strong safety. And we talk about good football players. If we look at Jeff Seaman, he's had quite a career here.
Jeff has had a great career. He's been bothered this year by a knee injury, and as a result, his year hasn't been as good as they have been in the past. Scott Studwell, a young man, number 55 for the Vikings, played well when Jeff was out injured, and you can see that in the 34 defense, Studwell will come in the middle also.
And now 6 defensive backs are on the field for Minnesota. No gain in the last play. 2nd down, 8 coming up. They're looking for Ferguson to go to the air, but he goes to Miller instead. Miller trying to work the blockage throw to Lama Lure, but Kurt Knopf, number 25, the free safety, and John Turner, number 27, came up to stop that play in a hurry, and Miller winds up losing a couple of yards, and now it's 3rd down and a little more than 10.
Knopf, they're very happy with. They picked him up on waivers from the Houston Oilers. He was injured earlier in the year, and Houston tried to sneak him through. Minnesota's been having problems in their defensive secondary. They need a lot of help if they're going to control Joe Ferguson right here.
Ferguson with a 3rd and 10 splits his receivers and the running backs. Good rush for the Vikes, but he gets it away. And it's completed on the 20-yard line to Frank Lewis. He is taken out of bounds by Tommy Hannon, the strong safety, number 45, as Ferguson strikes 2 out of 2 now.
Once again, they go to Frank Lewis. Frank has been having a super year, started out a little slow, and Butler was hot. And now they're turning to the veteran more and more as they go down the stretch. So as a result, you can see Frank Lewis is going to be a big factor in the game. Bobby Bryant, Kurt Knopf. Bryant likes to take chances. They'll try his zone once in a while and hope to get a big play over there. But once again, John Turner will have to bear the brunt of coverage. He was eaten up alive in a playoff game last year against the Rams. And since Nate Wright was hurt, he's got to learn his job in a hurry.
Ferguson hitting for 21 yards on the last pass. Goes back to the running game again to Terry Miller. And how about that shot by Jeff Seaman, the middle linebacker. Jeff Seaman, a number 1 draft choice in 1972, and it's obvious that defensive unit, which is anchored by Seaman and young Jim Marshall. Yes, he is. He's a grandfather, the only one in the NFL. But these guys are fired up, no doubt about it.
Oh, sure. I'm sure they want to see the last home game for Jim Marshall be a one that he can remember for the rest of his life, and it will be a long one the way he's been keeping himself. But again, Jeff Seaman, a great hit. Those Stanford grads are smart. They know where to be. They know where to tackle an offensive ball carrier.
A loss of a yard makes it 2nd and 11. In motion, Curtis Brown out of the backfield. And the play action, and Ferguson wants it all. And at the 7-yard line, the tight end, Joe Shipp, makes a reception, hit by Knopf, but he held on to the football, and a flag was dropped, however. Kurt Knopf up there also, and Ferguson now will have to walk the other way. He was close. He had Joe Shipp, who is filling in for the injured Reuben Gann, who's out for the season now, and Shipp caught only 2 passes going into the game today, and he had a big one there, but he's going to lose it. As Gordon McCarter walks it off back to the 25, and here's the call.
Illegal shift. Offense. Number 47 was in motion, and another offensive player was not set. Repeat, second down.
All right, Curtis Brown, illegal shift. He was the man in motion, and a lineman was not set.
That's a costly penalty, especially when you think they're down around the 5-yard line. That just means instead of a 5-yard loss, they could have been down there 20 yards ahead.
2nd and 15. Krause and Baylor have come into the defensive secondary as the Vikings show blitz. And Ferguson, out of the pocket, goes down. Number 72, Duck White, makes the tackle. A long loss on the play as Ferguson is sacked by James Duck White, number 72, the number 1 draft choice of 1976 out of Oklahoma State.
Duck White, again, their best defensive performer at this stage of the season. Again, Ferguson dropping back as he's done so well this season. You'll see White coming in, beating his man right there, chasing Ferguson. Ferguson trying to get out of his grasp, but White showing why he's the number 1 draft choice, catching him and bringing him down with a little help from number 47, Tim Baylor, on a blitz.
A loss of 10 yards. It is now 3rd down, 25. And again, the Viking pass rush is on. This time, Ferguson gets it away. And it's almost intercepted by John Turner, number 27, intended for Frank Lewis. And now it looks like Turner is looking up. Maybe the sun got in his eyes or something. He thought he should have had that one. So Joe Ferguson and the Bills are faced with 4th down and 25 in other ball games. Miami 14, Detroit 3. Bob Greasy is hitting that 4 with a touchdown pass. And Los Angeles updating there, 21-6. We just have an update in. Cincinnati and Washington, the Bengals up by 7. Ken Anderson has a touchdown pass in that one. So does Joe Theismann. Rusty Jackson will kick it away to Kevin Miller. And we've got a whistle. And delay of the game call against Buffalo.
Not really a bad call, just trying to set up a little better hang time on the punt to get the coverage down there. If he'd been kicking from 5 yards closer, chances are good that he would put it in the end zone no matter how high he tried to hang it.
The Cardinals, under their new coach, Larry Wilson, leading the Giants 12-0. Cardinals won last week also, Larry's debut. And Green Bay over Chicago, 7-3 in the 2nd quarter. 4th and 31 it is now. Jackson pops it high. Fair catch call for it. He still kicks it into the end zone. So Jackson booted that one 40 yards. And the Vikings will take over at their own 20 on the touchback. Well, we have no score here in Bloomington, Minnesota. Buffalo's Chuck Knox is rebuilding the Bills. He took a sick Los Angeles Ram franchise in 1973, went 12-2, and had 5 straight divisional titles. At Buffalo this year, 7-7. Bud Grant has coached the Vikings to 10 division titles, 4 Super Bowl appearances, all of the last 11 years. Tommy Kramer will go upstairs. He rips one back over the middle of the 29 as the flag goes down. Stu Voigt, the tight end, brought down by Isaiah Robertson.
Stu Voigt, there's a flag on the play.
Isaiah
And
blitz.
I think we got a roughing the passer call here as Haslett. A finger was pointed at, but I'm not sure that's who it was. We'll get that, however, from Gordon McCarter.
It was an all-out blitz. Every linebacker they could get in there got in there, and Robertson was one of the ones that got there a little bit late. It's a big break for Minnesota if no harm is done to Kramer.
Takes the ball to the 45.
Personal foul. Roughing the passer. Hitting late. Number 58 defense. First down.
It was Isaiah Robertson, the 9-year veteran from Southern, who's having a great year for the Buffalo Bills.
But they brought Isaiah over to study down the linebacking corps, but Shane Nelson has picked up that slack. Isaiah's holding his position down extremely well, a lot less vocal.
Tommy Kramer, first down at the 45 of the Vikings. He's got Brown in motion. And the handoff goes to Ricky Young. And Young at midfield moves into Buffalo territory to the 48. Steve Freeman, 22, the strong safety, has to bring him down.
Sort of a delayed draw, and you'll see a lot of that against Sherman White, who's known for his pass rush technique and the fact that he wants to get upfield. Ricky Young a little shaken up on the play, going over towards the bench, doing an outstanding job, always on top of some category in his career. But anyway, they'll do a lot of that type of draw against number 83 Sherman White. Mike Kadish filling in for Smirlis, who was injured early in the year, and Ben Williams, a steady performer at the left end spot, fill out a veteran defensive line.
After a 7-yard gain, 2nd and 3 for the Vikings. No score in the first quarter, and Brent McClanahan has replaced Ricky Young. And McClanahan moves to the 45, just across, brought down by Shane Nelson, 59, the linebacker, the 3-year man from Baylor. And here are the linebackers for Buffalo in that 3-4.
What a great group of young backers. Lucius Sanford, Nelson, and Haslett. Isaiah Robertson, a studying force again. Haslett and Nelson, 2 different booster clubs in the Buffalo area, voted them Defensive Players of the Year. So you can see that the middle linebackers have really been doing well for Buffalo this year.
We have 6 minutes, 5 seconds to go in the first quarter as the Vikings spread them out with one setback, and that's McClanahan. Kramer goes to the short route, completes it to Brent McClanahan, and Sanford, 57, and Haslett, 55, make the tackle on McClanahan, who hasn't seen much action this year. He, of course, was a great performer in the past for the Vikings, but he has had very little action this year.
This is what Kramer does extremely well, the little flat pass that people don't think a lot about, which can get you 6 or 7 yards at a time. You see the quick support the linebackers, especially Sanford, are giving number 57 on the outside. But you can bet that Kramer will come back with that pass in situations with 10 yards or less, because he feels like he can get at least 6 or 7 every time he throws it.
Well, they're going to measure that one. He got close to 10. Talking about McClanahan, and they're that short for a first down. Ricky Young has carried most of the load from the tailback spot this year for the Vikings. McClanahan has rushed for only 25 yards and caught passes for 48. And yet a year ago, Brent McClanahan was a very important part of this football team.
Oh, yeah. Well, they got the big trade, Ed White for Ricky Young. Again, it's something that Bud Grant wanted to do, a little bit of depth, but really Young took McClanahan's job away, and Brent hasn't been able to get it back. It's a credit to Young and a credit to the trade. But I'm sure that when both of them get in there, they give 110%. Want to get this ball club back in a winning tradition again.
And speaking of taking a job away, that's exactly what Ted Brown, number 23, the fullback, did to Chuck Foreman, who is down in Miami, is on the injured list, out for the year, but Brown won the job, and Chuck Foreman says he will not play behind anybody. So look for Chuck Foreman to move on. 2nd and inches. And inside the 20 at the 18-yard line is Sammy White, number 85, takes in the Tommy Kramer pass and is covered by Steve Freeman, the strong safety, number 22, and the Vikings are on the move now.
They sure are, and they go to Sammy White. Sammy White, known for his clearing patterns for Rashad. Only 38 receptions coming in the game. Number 22, Freeman, having the coverage on him right there. But again, Sammy White doing a great job, not the receptions of Rashad, but doing a fine job clearing away for him. Minnesota going to White in big situations. He made a big catch against Los Angeles last week in a losing effort, but a fine catch for a touchdown versus the Rams.
Sammy White, 19 yards on that one, a couple of yards better than his average. First down and 10 inside the 20, and a fumble, and let's see who's got it. Merle Herman and George Coons in Bloomington, Minnesota. Welcome aboard on a beautiful December 9th here. It's 42 degrees. There's no score between the Minnesota Vikings and the Buffalo Bills, and this is a big day for the Vikings because Jim Marshall, number 70, the all-pro defensive end, has announced his retirement. This is his last home game. So there's plenty of enthusiasm on that Viking defensive unit today, and also with the Viking offense right now, because the Vikings have moved the ball down to the 20-yard line. And number 70 is Jim Marshall, waiting to come aboard again, George.
You know, here's a guy who's going to be 42 years old. Excuse me, 32, I was going to say, but 42 years old, the 30th of December. Never sits down in a ball game, always enthusiastic, even when he's not on the field.
It's 2nd and 11 for Minnesota. Tommy Kramer to the air. And it's almost intercepted on the 8-yard line. Mario Clark, number 29, had his hands on the football, but he couldn't hold it. Sammy White was the intended receiver.
Clark having a super year for the Bills. They think he has a shot at a Pro Bowl spot if people will look in his direction. His season has been great. Sammy White again going back to White after a big catch to get him down to the 20. Minnesota feels they can work on that side with White a little bit more and possibly get closer to the goal line.
Ricky Young, the outstanding running back for the Minnesota Vikings, who left the game just a couple of minutes ago, has a possible broken nose. Terry LeCount is now in as a wide receiver. 3 wide receivers are in for Minnesota on 3rd down 11 on the 20 of Buffalo. The rush is on, and Kramer gets it away. He's got his man. That's Rashad. Ahmad Rashad, touchdown. Tremendous pressure by Mike Kadish, but you saw Kramer unload for 19 yards and a touchdown, and Minnesota is on the board as Rashad takes in his 9th touchdown pass of the year.
Ahmad Rashad with 4 different ball clubs, starting out in St. Louis, going to Buffalo, not happy in Seattle, nor they with him, coming to Minnesota. What a super job here, varying his speed between 2 defenders. You see 22 Freeman, 38 Nixon trying to get to him, but Rashad wide open as he is so often.
And so it's 7-0, Minnesota.
The kick is good. Score the Vikings 7, the Bills nothing.
The Minnesota Vikings have driven 80 yards in 8 plays to get on the scoreboard. Rick Danmeyer will kick off for the Vikings. They lead by a score of 7-0. Keith Moody, Mike Collier, and Lynn Willis are all deep for the Buffalo Bills. Oh, an onside kick. Did it go 10? The Vikings scrambled for the ball. I don't believe they might have made it. Flag went down, however. And the Vikings, cheering themselves and their fans, believe that the play will stand, and we'll see what it's all about. Danmeyer not only kicked the ball, but I believe he recovered it. Offside, Minnesota, so it doesn't work. Tom Higgins was shaken up on the play. So the Vikings go for the onside kick, and this is not a Bud Grant type of team from years ago.
No,
George.
Bud's pulling out some stops. He's having a little fun now. I guess he figures that they can do a few things more.
Offside, kicking team, penalty accepted, 5 yards and re-kick from the 30-yard line.
And in the last 2 games of the season, Bud Grant just may open up a little more with Kramer back there and have a little more fun.
Well, I think the Viking philosophy has changed somewhat this year, too, anyway, because they don't have the great running backs that they have had in the past, and certainly a guy like Kramer and with the receivers he has. Bud Grant, of course, plays the personnel like any other coach would, but still, this is somewhat of a departure from the Bud Grant philosophy of the past.
Well, you know, you can tell that by looking at his defense especially. Again, thank goodness Higgins is up, walking off the field under his own power, just a little shaken up. But you're right when you say that Bud Grant evaluates talent, and that's exactly why he's been so successful for such a long period of time. He knows what he has, he knows what he can do, and he goes out and he tries to get his guys to do it. That's a matter of motivation. But when you look at their defense, they used to play a straight 43 defense, no variation at all, 95% of the time. Now they've got to play over, they've got to play under. The defensive personnel is aging, as some of it is left in terms of Carl Eller. They're trying to bring in young people. Jim Marshall's announcing his retirement. Alan Page is gone. Now they're overshifting to go with strengths of running tendencies, which is an indication that all the confidence in their defensive line isn't what it used to be. They rely more on their linebackers to make tackles. But once again, Danmeyer kicking off, this time from the 30. Let's see what Buffalo can do with it.
And once more, Moody, Collier, and White are all back, or Willis rather, all back for Buffalo. And Danmeyer pops it pretty good. It'll be taken by Willis outside the 15. He's up to the 30, trying to get away and get to the outside, still on his feet, and finally wrestled down the 40-yard line. Scott Studwell, and there were only 2 men left that could have nailed him, and Studwell got him. But a fine return by Willis of 24 yards. He's out of Ohio State.
Willis returned to the Bills' 40-yard line.
So the Bills wind up with good field position. And talking about coaching philosophies, Chuck Knox, who has been, over the past years, a control-type coach, controlling the game of the running game, has also gone to the air, utilizing his personnel. He has outstanding receivers, and of course, Joe Ferguson is the #1 rated quarterback in the AFC percentage-wise, and is second in the NFL to Roger Staubach. Bills ball. Jerry Butler, no play. John Turner covered him, and Butler had a little trouble getting his hands on the football.
Well, it was a big tackle by Turner in another way, too. The outside backer, Matt Blair, blitzed, and if Turner had not gotten the man in that particular spot, play would have gone for much more yardage with only Tom Hannon back to stop 3 opposing offensive linemen.
Chuck Knox in his second year at Buffalo, former assistant coach for the New York Jets, also the head coach of the Rams. Yard lost on the play, the last play, second down 11 for Joe Ferguson.
Passing formation for Buffalo.
And also 2 extra defensive backs in for the Minnesota Vikings. Ferguson with time to the sideline at the 48-yard line. The reception is made by Jerry Butler, the rookie from Clemson, and John Turner, number 27, had the coverage on the play. Ferguson having an outstanding year, hitting for 8 yards on that one, which will bring up a third down and a little more than 2 yards to go.
Here you see Ferguson setting up to throw the ball. Now watch the receiver. He's bumped, and he may be out of bounds when he falls down. But for those of you watching NBC yesterday, Merlin Olsen made a big point, and that is of the impetus of the defender. Takes the man out of bounds. He will be ruled in. The pass will be ruled complete, and that's exactly what happened.
Ferguson and the Bills at the 48 of Buffalo. Down by 7. 2 minutes, 30 seconds to go in the first quarter. Number 72, and you can almost hear the leather popping. So, Terry Miller knocked down at the 40.
Once again, you'll see number 70, Jim Marshall, number 72, White, coming in. Terry Miller not having an outstanding year, the same kind of year he did last year. James White having a super year this year, really developing into the kind of lineman that Minnesota can live with for many years to come.
And it is 4th down and almost 5, and Kevin Miller will be back to receive the punt from Rusty Jackson. Minute 44 to go in the first quarter. Minnesota leading 7-0. Flag down. A beautiful punt by Rusty Jackson. And Miller on a fair catch at the 15, and we'll see what the flag's about. A kick of 39 yards, as the officials confer.
There is no foul. Number 55 properly reported to play an eligible position. Nothing wrong.
We had a little trouble with Gordon McCarter's mic. There was no foul on the play.
Timeout on the field.
And apparently the play will stand. Chuck Knox is going to get a clarification on that.
I wish we could get one. It was on 55. Scott Studwell, that's all we know at this point. But it will take the ball somewhere else at this point in the game.
Well, the play of the punt is going to stand, a 39-yard kick. And a fair caught on the 15-yard line by the Minnesota Vikings.
If Studwell was playing an outside position, he needed to report to the official and tell him that he was going outside. Otherwise, he'd be an ineligible number. That may have been what happened in that instance.
So the Vikings have the football and a 7-0 lead in the first quarter. They drove 80 yards on 8 plays, with Tommy Kramer throwing to Ahmad Rashad for the last 19 yards in the touchdown, and Dan Meyer added the extra point, and that's how the Vikings got the lead, in case you joined us late. So the Vikings with Dennis Swilley, 67, the center up over the ball. The guards are Jim Huff and Wes Hamilton. The tackles are Steve Riley and Ron Yeri. And that is Ted Brown in motion. Brown on the sideline at the 15, covered by Charles Romes, number 26, the right cornerback. So that was just about at the line of scrimmage.
Charles Rome's been thrown at quite a bit this year, not because he's a bad man himself. By that I mean not bad cornerback, but because Mario Clark is having such a good year. Rome's getting a lion's share of the work. One of the fastest guys on the Bills team. But again, a lot of passes in his directions, and you'll see quite a few flat passes going to the Vikings left today.
2nd and 10 for the Vikings.
Rashad comes out wide to the right. Sammy White wide to the left for Minnesota. We're down to 55 seconds to go in the first quarter. Kramer on the sprint draw, and it is Brent McClanahan, brought down by Charles Romes, and they didn't get too much on that one either.
Romes on the tackle.
A couple of yards. It'll be 3rd down, 8.
You know, one thing that you can notice about the Buffalo defense this year is that they are a very disciplined group. Everybody, even on the backside of plays, will take respective lanes to cut down pursuit. That time, McClanahan tried to bounce it outside. Against Buffalo a year or two ago, he probably could have taken it for more yardage. But now, people in their respective areas stopping plays for shorter gains.
Terry LeCount, number 80, has joined Sammy White, 85, and Ahmad Rashad, number 28, as the wide receivers now for Minnesota. Kramer breaks the possible sack, throws on the run, and it's incomplete on the 35-yard line. Sammy White was the intended receiver, and Jeff Nixon, number 38, broke it up and almost had a shot. Well, he did have a shot at an interception. But it is now 4th down for Minnesota. Mike Cady, 71, was putting on a lot of heat.
Good pressure. You see 77, Ben Williams coming around. Kramer running outside. He has some running room. A bad decision in this particular case, throwing to a guy that's pretty well covered by Nixon. Possibility of an interception, but to no avail. He didn't get the interception. Sammy White didn't get the completion. The quarter's over. Teams changing sides of the field.
And at the end of the first quarter, the score, Minnesota 7, Buffalo nothing. We'll be right back after these messages from your local station.
For the memory.
Well, here's one of George Kuhn's former teammates. Merle Herman and George Kuhn's with you in Bloomington, Minnesota. And the Vikings have a 4th down and 8. And back to do the punting is Greg Coleman. And back in a single safety, Keith Moody, number 46. Coleman's punting average, 40 yards. His longest has been 70. Former Florida A&M star pops it away and high. And Moody will field it on his own 44. And he breaks the tackle, trying to get to the outside, trying to get a block, heads down the sideline, and let's see what he can do. A tremendous return by Keith Moody down to around the 30-yard line. And we may have a flag dropped, and we do have. Scott Studwell finally made the tackle. So Keith Moody, one of the fine punt return men and kickoff return men in the NFL, hauls it back, but it may not stand.
You know, he did a fine job. Again, one of the things that coaches tell their team members after they're out of contention is that
Holding, number 33, kicking team, after the kick, penalty decline, 1st down.
one of the things that a coach will tell, McClanahan, number 33, call for the holding penalty. One of the things a coach will say is that your conduct on the field, the way you perform when games mean nothing, will indicate how you perform when games mean a lot. And people who perform well in games that don't mean that much are the people they look to keep in games that they do. Here you see the special teams of Buffalo doing a fine job as Moody hits the wedge, hits the sideline with great blocking for a great gain.
And Buffalo has an opportunity to take it in on the Viking 30. Terry Miller or Steve Powell. Let's check it.
Terry Miller,
It was Terry Miller.
Hannon and Duck.
And it was Tommy Hannon, number 45, and James White, 72, made the tackle. Terry Miller was over 1,000 yards in his rookie year, but this has definitely been an off-season for him. Number 40, he's rushed for 466 yards, caught passes for 111. And, of course, the Bills can look for him to really bounce back next year.
7 for the Bills, number Viking 27.
This telecast is presented by authority of the National Football League, and it is intended for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or other use of this telecast without the express written consent of the Minnesota Vikings and the National Football League is prohibited. It'll be 2nd and 7 for Buffalo. In the first quarter of the way, the Bills had 39 yards net yardage, the Vikings 73. The Bills had the ball for 9 minutes 27 seconds, the Vikings 5:33. And Joe Ferguson and the Buffalo Bills ready to make it go if they can. 2nd down 7 coming up. Bills down by 7. Ferguson down to the 12-yard line, and does it stand or does it not? Frank Lewis went to the ground, covered by John Turner, but apparently did not hold on to the football or trapped it.
Lewis is incomplete.
3rd down 7 coming up for the Buffalo Bills. The Vikings scored in the first period on an 80-yard drive with Tommy Kramer throwing to Ahmad Rashad for the last 19 yards in the score. For Tommy Kramer, it was his 22nd touchdown pass of the year. The reception for the touchdown was Rashad's 9th TD.
At the Vikings 27.
Third down, 7. The running backs are Terry Miller and Curtis Brown. At the 19, Butler takes it for the first down. Brought down by Kurt Knopf, number 25. Butler is back after missing 3 games. He played last week, but he missed 3 games with an injury, with a shoulder injury. So they got 10 on the first down to the 19.
You know, everybody talks about the quality of receivers that Buffalo has, but one of the reasons they have great receivers is because they have a great quarterback, Joe Ferguson. On that particular play, I don't know if you folks noticed it or not, but he actually looked off and then threw the ball as we saw the Miami score. Joe Ferguson is doing something that Kramer is not yet, and that's looking one way and then throwing another to fool the defense. Let's see if he does it again here.
Terry Miller for a double. Dave Roller, number 76, who was waived by Green Bay earlier this year, down on the tackle along with James White, number 72. Los Angeles leading Atlanta 28-6 in the third quarter. Cincinnati trailing Washington now 21-14 third quarter. St. Louis still shutting out the New York Giants. And Green Bay ahead of Chicago by 1.
Second and 10 for the Bills at the Vikings.
Second down, 10 at the 19-yard line of Minnesota, with the Vikings leading 7-0. Curtis Brown fighting for anything he can get, and what he got was about 3, near the 15. Curtis Brown, the 3-year veteran out of University of Missouri. Fred McNeil, 54, and Tommy Hannon, 45.
A little counterplay here. Miller going one way, Brown coming back the other. Brown had a horrendous game last week with 4 fumbles, tried everything he could to go ahead and not fumble the ball. Here, inside the 20-yard line, where territory is tough, you see him holding on well, moving the ball downfield for his team. Definitely wants to contribute more than he did last week to a Bills victory.
And we have a Bill injured on the last play. 12-14 to go in the second quarter. Brown is down. The Vikings lead 7-0. Mike Collier has replaced Curtis Brown, who has walked off the field under his own power. He was limping slightly as he got up. Lou Picone has now come in for the Buffalo Bills, and Joe Shipp has gone out, so now the Bills have 3 wide receivers. It is third down, 7 for Buffalo, and the Bills trail by 7.
The Vikings countering 3 wide receivers with 5 defensive backs. The boo you might have heard was the fact that the Viking fans don't like the nickel defense here. Let's see what happens.
And Ferguson underthrows slightly, but a flag is dropped to the end zone. It was Lou Picone who just came into the ball game, the intended receiver, and the flag was thrown, and it is against Lou Picone. So the offensive pass interference call goes against the Bills. Let's see if we can see what Picone does.
Here Ferguson again setting up Picone open, but because of the penalty, we know why he's so wide open. Here slipping the ball slightly out of his reach. Turner again far away from where Picone is, but there's a reason for it. A push off by that man right there, number 89, Lou Picone.
Pass interference, number 89, offense, repeat third down.
Well, it's now third down 17 after the pass interference call, and so Joe Ferguson will try to cook something up. He's calling his own plays now this year, and he's doing very well.
He's 3-1 calling his own plays. That's better than Buffalo's been regular season with the guidance from the sideline, so I'm sure Joe likes it better that way. A better feel for the game on the field.
Jerry Butler splits wide to the left side. Buffalo sends a slot man left, splits the receiver right. Third down, 17.
Blitz.
And it is not good at the 20-yard line. Pretty good pop put on Frank Lewis. Paul Krause, 22, who broke Emlyn Tunnell's interception record a week ago, 81 for his career. Bobby Bryant, another veteran of 11 years out of South Carolina, number 20. They know how to hit.
Well, they sure do. Bryant, never really known as a hitter himself, but those drags across the middles, especially when middle linebackers blitz, really leave an open area as deep as Paul Krause likes to play. So if you do see some more blitzing, you'll see more drags across the middle by those wide receivers. You'll see more gains by Buffalo.
Don't forget to stay tuned later today for the second half of our exciting doubleheader. The Raiders host the Browns. For most of you, later today on NBC. Nick Bickemeyer has come on the field now, and Bobby Bryant has gone off. Bickemeyer, in his 7th year out of Temple, out of the Bickemeyer kicking family, has kicked 19 out of 25 field goals this year. Added 17 of 18 extra point tries for 74 points. The Mickemeyers and the Barrers kind of have a monopoly on field goal kicking.
They do it quite well, both families. Nick and I played together in Atlanta. He was excellent there. He's having a fine year now with Buffalo.
A 44-yard attempt, and he is 4 out of 9 from that range. But this time it is not good. And so the Vikings stop the Bills, and the Vikings will take over the football again with 11 minutes and 40 seconds to go in the first half. Mickemeyer's been rather effective from that range, but not this time. So we have a timeout here at Bloomington, Minnesota. 11:40 to play, and the Vikings will have the ball. They lead 7-0.
Bobby Bryant is okay.
Curtis Brown is out at least for the rest of the first half. Bobby Bryant is taken up. He'll be okay. Brown has a knee injury. McClanahan and Brown are now the running backs. This is Ted Brown, number 23, who is in motion. And Tommy Kramer from his own 26 will put it in the air and does on the 38-yard line to Rashad, who's having an outstanding season. He's over the 1,000-yard mark and has already caught a touchdown pass today. They work on Charles Romes, who forced him out of bounds, and the Vikings pick up 12 and a first down.
You know, that's really putting Romes between a rock and a hard spot. You got a back coming out of the backfield in motion. Lucius Sanford has to go with the back. Otherwise, it's another 10-yard gain. So, in other words, Romes one-on-one against Ahmad Rashad, and Ahmad Rashad can beat about anybody one-on-one. As a result, he's got to give some distance, and the turnouts are there. Kramer can have that pass all day.
Tommy Kramer, who came back from a serious injury of a year ago, operating well today. Ted Brown trying to get to the outside, all the way to the sideline. Flags are thrown as he's knocked down around the 35 in his own territory. Mario Clark, number 29, the left cornerback, forced him out. Ted Brown just couldn't put it together because his blocking wasn't up there.
They have great pursuit. That linebacking core, Robertson, Haslett, holding penalty versus Buffalo. Shane Nelson, Lucius Sanford, great outside support. As a result, it's very difficult to run against Buffalo outside. Once again, the front three of Buffalo, a veteran group. They tried to put the rookies in there, but Hardison, against Smirlis injured, couldn't really put it together. The veteran front three of the Buffalo Bills is forcing the wide stuff, which the linebackers are cutting down. The linebacking core has been the biggest improvement for the Bills this year, but they owe a lot of their improvement to the fact that those three people up front, Sherman White, Mike Kadish, and Ben Williams, are doing a fine job slanting, causing people to try to run outside because they can't make the yardage inside.
Holding, number 29, defense, 5 yards, and automatic first down.
Well, Mario Clark, the left cornerback, he was playing bump and run up on the line of scrimmage with a wide receiver. That was a throwback to the old AFL days, right up on the line of scrimmage. He was up there against Ahmad Rashad.
That's pretty hard to play bump and run against Rashad, especially when you're that close to the line.
Sammy White splits to the right, Ahmad Rashad to the left. It's 1st and 10 on the 43 of Minnesota for the bootleg action, and Kramer's going to go for it all. And it's intercepted back of the 10-yard line. Jeff Nixon, number 38, picked that one off. Buffalo will have the ball at the 9-yard line as Nixon gets his 5th interception of the year, and he's having an outstanding rookie season.
Kramer here, a little sort of a fake on a rollout, a little run fake, and looks downfield for Rashad. Here you see going right for him. Nixon could play wide receiver for any club in the league with a catch like this. It's great coverage, 2 men on Rashad, right where they should be. Number 22 Freeman there with him, but Nixon coming up with a big play. Nixon has a great future. As a matter of fact, he moved out an all-pro man by the name of Tony Green, who many people considered one of the best athletes on the team when O.J. Simpson was in Buffalo. Again, Bud Grant wondering what's going on, probably telling Kramer, look, if you're going to throw away, do it a little farther than that. We'll be right back after this message. Right here you can see Jeff Nixon making a great catch down on the 7-yard line, but sliding forward. Rashad touching him on the 4-yard line. The officials spotting the ball on the 7. Maybe a little telling Kramer, look, if you're going to throw away, do it a little little farther than that. We'll be right back after this message. Right here you can see Jeff Nixon making a great catch down on the 7-yard line, but sliding forward. Rashad touching him on the 4-yard line. The officials spotting the ball on the 7. Maybe a little bit of a mistake. A 3-yard mistake at this point means that Buffalo does not have their back against the wall, and they can pass rather than run for a little more yardage.
And Joe Ferguson, down by 7, will go to the pitch, and he hits Mike Collier on the pitch out, and Collier, who's replaced the injured Curtis Brown, swings around the left end and goes out of bounds at about the 18, chased out by Bobby Bryant, number 20. Mike Collier, a 4-year veteran from Morgan State. We pause briefly for station identification. This is the NBC Television Network.
This is WTCN TV, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Merle Herman and George Coons with you in Bloomington, Minnesota, where it's 42 degrees on the final home game day of the year for the Minnesota Vikings. They lead Buffalo 7-0 on a Tommy Kramer touchdown pass, Ahmad Rashad in the first quarter. Again, Mike Collier as Buffalo goes to the running game. And Collier picks up the first down at the 23, brought down by Tommy Hannon, number 45, the strong safety, and free safety Kurt Knopf, number 25. So the Buffalo passing game has not worked too well in the first quarter and this part of the second half, so they go back to the run.
You can see the man playing on the nose. Minnesota shifting strong against Buffalo, and Buffalo's going back weak with audibles versus Minnesota's defensive front. Here again, number 35 taking the ball in there. That's
Mike Collier.
Mike Collier, thank you, excuse me, for a good gain. The reason they're running is because of the overshift and the audible.
And down goes Joe Ferguson. Fred McNeil, the quick linebacker, coming from the right side. And we've got a flag thrown, I believe. We'll check that. But Joe Ferguson feeling the pressure. And here comes the call, I believe a holding call.
Holding, number 67, offense, declined, second down.
The Vikings obviously will take the loss. A holding call against Reggie McKenzie, number 67. The great pulling guard from the University of Michigan. There he is, who led the way for O.J.
He sure did, but it's hard for 5 people, as Reggie McKenzie knows, to block 7. Full blitz, 4 defensive linemen coming, 5 offensive linemen blocking. Somebody's going to get through. A big chance by Minnesota, but it paid off.
The Vikings took the 12-yard loss. It is second down, 22 for Joe Ferguson and the Bills. This is Mike Collier. And this time the Vikings close it off as Collier gets put about 3 yards. Jeff Seaman, number 50, the middle linebacker, and Mark Mullaney, 77, the defensive left end, led that defensive unit for Minnesota. And now Buffalo has a third down, 20. And the ball is on the 13. And Roland Hooks has replaced Terry Miller in the backfield for the Buffalo Bills. Hooks, number 25, a 4-year veteran from North Carolina State, is having a good year. In fact, in one game, he scored 4 touchdowns this year. That's what Ferguson has done in the air. At the 29, the reception made there by Jerry Butler, the rookie from Clemson. Kurt Knopf makes the tackle. A gain of 16 yards, but we've got another flag thrown. Jerry Butler, first time we saw him in the Bills opener back, I believe, on September 2nd. He was outstanding, and he has been that way all year.
He sure has. He has over 250 yards receiving in one game. Was voted Rookie of the Year again by another Buffalo organization. In the running for Rookie of the Year for the AFC, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Caught 10 passes for 255 yards, we were just talking about, and 4 touchdowns versus the Jets this year. Not bad for a rookie, but what can he do next year after a start like that, Merle?
He'll be better. He will be better.
Hard to believe.
We have 8 minutes, 29 seconds left to play in the first half, with the Vikings leading by a score of 7-0. Scott Studwell, number 55, you saw him there making a little adjustment with the shoes or whatever, and here comes the walk-off by Gordon McCarter, and the Bills just can't get out of the hole here in this series.
Holding, number 70, offense, repeat third down.
Joe Devlin, number 70, was guilty of holding. All right, that's first cabin right there.
That's the way to come to a ball game.
See it all. See all the replays. 26 for Buffalo.
Three-man defensive front.
Rolling hook. And the running play doesn't work either. So the Bills are really struggling. Matt Blair, 59, and Kurt Knopf, 25, the linebacker and strong safety. Shut hooks down in a hurry. And so the punting unit will come on.
Here you see the 34 defense. We talked about outside support by the linebackers again for Buffalo on defense. Here you see great outside support. Scott Studwell, number 55, getting in on the tackle from a middle linebacker spot along with Matt Blair. But again, they do it. They can't run outside versus the 34 with good pursuit.
On a 4th and 27, Jackson kicks it away, and it is being brought back by number 87, Kevin Miller. And the Buffalo Bills are going to wind up with their defensive unit having to stop the Minnesota Vikings, who are deep into Buffalo territory and have a 7-0 lead. Tom Higgins made the last tackle. The kick was only 31 yards by Rusty Jackson, but he was almost standing in the back line of the end zone. So the Vikings have an excellent opportunity to do something now here in the second quarter with 7 minutes and 46 seconds to play, and the Vikes have a 7-0 lead.
There is a timeout.
And we've got a timeout. Which man on this field holds the CFL record of 5 interceptions in one game? We'll find out in just a moment when we get Krause, who set an NFL record with 81 career pass interceptions a week ago, is not the man who intercepted 5 in the CFL.
Bud Grant, the man with a headset on right there, is a man with 5 interceptions in one ball game in his CFL career. 1953 in a playoff game. Doing a great job coaching now after getting out of the CFL and that record. 1st and 10 for the Vikings on the 31 as Kramer goes to the air, and it's almost picked off of the 20-yard line by Lucius Sanford, number 57. Kramer kind of forced that one. He really did, and that's the inexperience of a young quarterback, really, and this is really his first full year. We talked a little bit about, well, we'll talk about more after these scores.
And Miami ahead of Detroit as Miami is on the way possibly to the playoffs, and more about that later. Larry Zonka's touchdown made it 21-3 over the Detroit Lions. And the St. Louis Cardinals have built a 19-6 lead over the Giants. Bill Sims has hit Billy Taylor for a touchdown pass. It is 2nd and 10 on the 31 of Buffalo. Vikings lead 7-0. Little play action. Little screen off to the right, and the ball is dropped out there by Ted Brown. McClanahan, beg your pardon, number 33, not 23. So they had the screen formed right, but it didn't work.
Well, you saw Kramer right there do something they've been trying to get him to do, and which young quarterbacks have a hard time doing, and that's look one way and throw the other. Ferguson is very effective doing it for Buffalo. It shows up in his credentials. Kramer has a tendency to look at his primary receiver and nowhere else. That's why his tight ends aren't catching a lot of passes this year. That time he tried to pump fake downfield, go towards his screen. If he does it more, and he will, it'll be a matter of maturing, but he will get better at it. Hopefully he can do a little bit more of that today for the Vikings.
Kramer, 6 out of 11, 68 yards, 1 touchdown. A 5th defensive back is in for Buffalo. Here comes the blitz, and it is cut loose by Kramer. Mario Clark had a shot at it. Rashad was the intended receiver, and Kramer had to unload because Kadish was coming with a rush, and the linebackers were very active.
They were very active. Kramer, again, threw a little bit of a duck. That pass floated out there. It wasn't really drilled, but again, Kramer going backwards while he's throwing it. It was a pass that could have been intercepted by Clark. Rashad, putting his body in front of the defender, did a good job of not letting him catch the ball. Hopefully Kramer will come back and get some more passes complete for the Vikings later on.
Greg Coleman is back to punt for Minnesota. Keith Moody, 46, 86. Lynn Willis are deep for the Buffalo Bills. Coleman has kicked 18 out inside the 20-yard line this year. 3-year veteran from Florida A&M, and the Vikings will take a penalty to give Coleman a little better shot. He's up pretty close.
They call Coleman a situation punter, a punter that doesn't let weather affect him. He had a good year with Cleveland, came to the Vikings where they're very happy to have him. But one of the reasons they want Coleman here is because good days, bad days, any kind of day, he kicks the ball the same way. He's consistent, and he's good at being consistent. He's consistently consistent. He just puts the ball down there where they want it all the time. Not necessarily long, but accurate.
7.5 minutes to go in the first half here in Minnesota, and the defensive unit of the Buffalo Bills having a long talk with Gordon McCarter.
Delay of game,
it's a 4th and 15 from the 36-yard line of the Buffalo Bills, who trail by 7. And once more, Greg Coleman is back deep. He'll try for that coffin corner right. And over in that area, Keith Moody, number 46. He's up short. And Coleman goes for the right sideline. Let's see where he got it out. They start to line it up. It's outside the 10. It's around the outside the 15 apparently. But they line it up. And the ball is finally placed down, and the Bills will take over at about the 15-yard line. Timeout, with Minnesota leading by a score of 7-0. And we'll be back right after this. Full of football waiting for you on NBC. Saturday, it's a special edition of NFL 79, followed by the Jets versus the Dolphins in a must game for Miami. Then on the final regular season Sunday, there's exciting regional coverage as the race for the playoffs goes down to the wire, featuring the Seahawks versus the Raiders. Check local listings for the game in your area. Bills ball, 1st and 10, just inside the Bill 15. Ferguson will go upstairs, and no, he won't. Down he goes, blindsided on the 5-yard line. Jim Marshall and Mark Mullaney were coming from the outside, and Marshall gets the sack.
I'll tell you, there's no way a man who's almost 42 years old is not going to be pumped up for a game, and last time in front of a hometown crowd. That case, he beat Ken Jones to the inside, number 72, where an offensive lineman shouldn't be beat. Jim Marshall got there, came in, blindsided Ferguson for a 10-yard loss.
2nd down and 20. Marshall's final home game. What a career he has had. He's played in every Viking game since the franchise came into being. Collier, not much. James Duck White, number 72, over there to make the tackle for the Minnesota Vikings. Mike Collier has replaced the injured Curtis Brown. Hopefully Brown will be back in the second half.
Gain of 2.
I tell you, this left side of the Minnesota line is getting tough. Again, Marshall trying to get hooked by 72. Ken Jones rolls off the block, comes around back inside in time to try to help, or at least cut off the outside pursuit for James White, number 72, who goes ahead and makes the tackle. The right side of the Minnesota line, the left side of the Buffalo line, a good confrontation over there today.
Last play, gain 2. It is 3rd down 18 on the draw. This is Mike Collier. Collier batting heads with the Minnesota Vikings. A flag is dropped as he goes to the 15, and Curtin off the free safety, number 25, and James White, 72, the defensive tackle, make the stop. And again, the Buffalo Bills, pinned down to their own territory, are guilty of a penalty.
You know, it's hard enough to play well when another team is playing well, but when you are killing yourself with penalties, as Buffalo's doing at this juncture in the game, it is difficult to get out of the hole you dig yourself. Let's see if Buffalo can overcome the penalties and move the ball upfield against a Minnesota defense that's getting consistently tougher as the quarter wears on.
So the Vikings will take the penalty to push the Bills even deeper and closer to their own goal line. We're down to 6 minutes, 3 seconds to go in the first half here in Bloomington, Minnesota. Merle Herman and George Coons with you, hoping you're enjoying the action between the Bills of the AFC and the Vikings of the NFC.
Holding, number 68, offense, repeat, 3rd down.
Joe DeLamalure, number 68, 4-time All-Pro. 4 times in a row he's gone to the Pro Bowl and is another candidate this year. 3rd down, 21. Play action and incomplete on the 15-yard line. Jerry Butler, the speedster, the intended receiver. And again, Rusty Jackson will have to kick back from the back of his own end zone. Look at these penalties.
There we have it. 7 penalties for 50 yards. Buffalo hurting themselves. Minnesota playing well, relatively penalty-free. That is why Buffalo was backed up way down in their own territory with a kicker at the end of the end zone line.
And the Vikings have been noted for a long time for blocking punts, field goals, and extra points. Jackson got it out of there, and he booms it well. It will be taken and dropped on the 36-yard line and covered immediately by Lynn Willis. A 32-yard kick. Rusty Jackson and Hannon really had some pressure on, and we have let's see, an injured official. It's Bill Quinby, the field judge. Talk about pressure. The Minnesota Vikings have been putting it on Rusty Jackson the last 2 punts.
10 men rushing in this particular formation. Jackson just getting it off. You can see the people closing in, but again, a disciplined rush. They don't take Jackson down. They go for the ball, and when they realize they can't get it, they'll back off on the punter. Here, very fortunate, Miller, 87, drops the ball, gets on it just in time before the Buffalo man comes down and covers him. Very fortunate for Miller that he didn't go ahead and lose the ball to great field position for the Buffalo Bills, which would have helped them dig themselves out of the hole. The ref is up. Things are so tough down there, Merle. Even the refs are going down.
Hey, get the uniform on. Give it another shot. One more time. Jackson has averaged 37 yards on 5 punts today for the Buffalo Bills. You know, the Vikings, George, have had lots of opportunities in this quarter in Bill territory. If they don't take advantage of the opportunities they've been given, look out for the Bills in the second half.
The second half, the Bills have a good tendency of coming back. But again, the Buffalo defense, a big credit to them. They've been playing well. The last 7 or 8 games have been playing great.
Ricky Young is back in action inside the 35 and about the 33. Ted Brown leading the way with a block, his fullback. And Jim Haslett, number 55, and Ben Williams, 77, converged to make the tackle. Jim Haslett, the rookie linebacker from Indiana, Pennsylvania, has been absolutely outstanding for Buffalo this year, and it's his birthday today. He's 24 years old, so happy birthday, Jim Haslett. And there he is, number 55, who says if Tom Cousino comes to the Bills after playing in Canada, he'll have to find another place to play. He won't play middle linebacker. He said, I got that job. Razzle-dazzle, flea flicker. Kramer back down the sideline. And it is Ricky Young who makes that reception. Steve Freeman got Young out of bounds. We've got to the flag of the play. Ben Williams had the rush on Kramer, and Kramer was decked pretty good as the Vikings go for one of the oldest plays ever, I guess, in football for a gain of 14 yards.
You know, it's not often that the Vikings go to the razzle-dazzle, but they certainly did here. Again, the old flea flicker play. When Kramer threw that pass, he had the touch on it that's got to be an inborn talent. It was just right, floated in between two defenders, to his receiver, Ricky Young, making the catch going out of bounds, but fine touch on the ball that time by Kramer. Something that has to be an inborn talent.
And again, the penalty burns the Buffalo Bills.
Personal foul, roughing the passer, hitting late. Number 77, defense, first down.
And Ben Williams, number 77, draws the foul. The Bill defensive unit, as George said, has been out there a long time in this quarter. First and 10 at the 10-yard line, outside the 10 for the Minnesota Vikings. And Jeff Nixon stops Ricky Young in a hurry.
Boy, they're pulling out the stops. They had 7 people on the line of scrimmage. They brought Nixon up for support. 8 people up there trying to stop the run. A big chance, but again, Buffalo going with tendencies, thinking that Minnesota's going to run the ball down there for a few yards and maybe throw second or third down. They went with a blitz. They stopped the play.
So a loss of 2 makes it second down and 12.
Second and 12 for the Vikings at the Bills.
Tony Green comes in, the defensive secondary now for Buffalo. Rashad goes to the slot right. Sammy White wide to the right. Robert Miller is down as the fullback. Miller on the draw. Miller breaking a tackle. Miller at the 10. He's down to the 8. And Mike Cady, 71, the nose tackle, has to make the stop for the Buffalo Bills. Robert Miller, a 5-year veteran from Kansas, has not seen too much action this year. In fact, very little. You can see.
The last time they had that formation, they threw a little flare pass out there. We see Miller's stats for this year. This time off the flare, a little sort of sprint draw, the same play that Seattle likes to use. This time Buffalo, aware of the fact that Minnesota also likes to use it, getting up in there, getting some hands on Miller in the backfield, but then good pursuit by the Buffalo defense brings him down for about a 4-yard gain.
Buffalo goes to a 4-man front. It is now third down 7 for the Minnesota Vikings. Kramer with some time. It's gone. And Kramer tries to dump it off. He had Stu Voigt, the tight end, out of the area. Ben Williams, number 77, the defensive left end, along with Mike Cady, 71, were putting on the pressure. So the Vikings, who had an excellent opportunity to go for 7, are now going to have to go for 3.
You know, they've been getting, again, those two gentlemen there, 83 Sherman White, Ben Williams, 77. They didn't, the Buffalo coaches really felt they would go with their rookies at the end spots. But again, Hutchinson, Johnson, as Kramer looks down, going to the sidelines, not doing the job at the end spots. These veterans coming in, doing an equitable job. White not only playing well on defense, but blocking big kicks and extra points to boot.
Dan Meyer, 26-yard attempt. The distance is good, but there's a flag on the play. Dan Meyer, from that range, 2 out of 4 this year.
There's a flag on the play.
So hold it up, and we'll see what this is all about. The Bills just have not been able to get untracked here in this first half. Offside, Minnesota. So kill the field goal. So now Dan Meyer, presumably, will be going from some 31 yards away. Referee Gordon McCarter saying, come on, gang, let's get her going here. 3 minutes and 29 seconds to go in the first half, and Minnesota is leading by a score of 7-0, having scored back in the first quarter on an 80-yard drive in 8 plays, with Tommy Kramer going to Ahmad Rashad for 19 yards on the touchdown pass with 4:17 to go in the first quarter.
Offside, the entire left side of the kicking team's line. Repeat, 4th down.
They got them all, didn't they?
They didn't show favoritism.
The entire left side. A 31-yard attempt now by Dan Meyer, and he's 4 out of 6 in this range.
Here comes White.
Looks good. Whoa! Hit the crossbar, I believe, but it slid down. And so it's a 31-yard field goal by Dan Meyer, and with 3 minutes and 25 seconds to go in the first half, Minnesota has taken a 10-0 lead over the Buffalo Bills. Dan Meyer will kick off for Minnesota. Deep for the Buffalo Bills are Keith Moody, number 46, Mike Collier, 35, and 86, Lynn Willis. They wouldn't. Nope, they wouldn't. Bills thought possibly the onside kick might be coming. And it's Mike Collier to bring it back for the Buffalo Bills, still on his feet. He's got a good return back to around the 28-yard line. So Collier. The Bills have 3 minutes and 14 seconds left in the first half to get on the board.
Collier, again, listed really as a journeyman, a guy that they don't expect to contribute too much to an overall success, but really playing his heart out today, having a great day. A 5-year veteran out of the University of Kansas, number 5 draft choice in 1975. Again, not expecting too much from him, but delivering.
The Buffalo Bills, who trail by 10 now, have Collier and Roland Hooks in the backfield. Frank Lewis comes in motion back to the right side. And Frank Lewis on the sideline across the 30 at about the 31. And John Turner, 27, the left cornerback for the Minnesota Vikings, had the coverage. 2 minutes, 55 seconds to go in the first half. The play gained 8 yards. It'll be 2nd down and 2. Frank Lewis is having an outstanding year for the Buffalo Bills, coming into the game with 949 yards on 45 receptions, 2 touchdowns. 2nd down, 2 for Buffalo. The Bills down by 10. Ball in the 32 of the Bills. Collier up the middle for the first down to the 46. Kurt Knopf, 25, the free safety, had to make the stop. 2 minutes, 25 seconds to go in the first half, and the Bills are starting to move it.
A counter play again. We saw the play earlier in the first period. They're expecting those defensive linemen to go with Miller, and they want a counter coming back with Collier. As a result, they're picking up good yardage. The Vikings at this point really can afford to give up a little more yardage on the ground, but I'm sure once they get inside the 50, you'll see a much tougher run defense for Minnesota.
And with 2:03 in the clock running, we may not see another play before the 2-minute warning, and there's the whistle. So 2 minutes remain in the first half here in Bloomington, Minnesota. The Vikings have led all the way, scoring a touchdown in the first quarter and a field goal just a moment or so ago. And so with 2 minutes left in the first half, the Vikings lead 10-0. The preceding announcement was furnished by the National Football League. Viking fans attending the last home game of the year here in Metropolitan Stadium, and in a couple of years they hope to be in their new dome facility, which will seat some 65,000 in the downtown area of Minneapolis. They broke ground this past week. There's one remaining obstacle, but everybody here is very optimistic that the new Dome Stadium will be built. In fact, as we said, they've broken ground, but they hope it won't be delayed, and they hope they'll be in it in 2 years. The Bills down by 10, 2 minutes to go. The Bills with the ball at the Buffalo 46-yard line. 6 defensive backs are now in for Minnesota. Butler split to the left, Lewis to the right. They go to the running game. It's Roland Hooks. Hooks at midfield, Hooks down to the 46-yard line of Minnesota. And he's got almost 10. James Duck White, number 72, the number 1 draft choice in 1976. The best lineman, we are told by those who scout the Minnesota Vikings, made the tackle.
And having a great game today. Roland Hooks coming into the game at this juncture because the Buffalo Bills feel that his hands are a little better than Miller's. He's in there to see if they do throw the ball. They feel they can get a little more hand on the ball, a better catching possibility with Hooks in the backfield along with Collier.
2nd down 1 for Buffalo. Minute 22 seconds remaining in the first half. Ferguson goes down back on the 46-yard line. Mark Mullaney, 77, and Jim Marshall, number 70. Look at those two.
What a great day for that man. What a great day for Jim Marshall.
Well, Jim Marshall admired not only by his own teammates and his fans, but if you were with us as we look at the 28th quarterback sack for the Vikings this season. They had 33 last year. Anyway, Jim Marshall admired by everybody, including the Buffalo Bills, as they came out for the coin toss. The Buffalo captains all went over to shake hands and congratulate Jim Marshall on a great career, which I think was very nice for the Bills to do that. And of course, everybody feels the same way. Like, I mean, after all, he's got on the other color uniform right now, and the war is on. But right now, we'd like to tell you about tonight on NBC. In the tradition of NBC's Jesus of Nazareth, Mary and Joseph, A Story of Faith. A special 3-hour world premiere on the big event. Then a primetime exclusive interview with Steven Spielberg, director of Jaws. That's tonight on NBC. Mary and Joseph, A Story of Faith. At the 45-yard line of the Buffalo Bills, it'll be 3rd down 11. Marshall and Mullaney are getting ready to tee off again. And Marshall got a little anxious, but he got back in time, and Frank Lewis was out of bounds when he caught the football. So it'll be 4th down and 11.
Collier looking at the play from the seat of his pants. Lewis getting downfield. Minnesota defense giving off more yardage. That time the defender was back around Minnesota's 30-yard line, 5 yards away from Lewis, but he felt that even there that they still had a chance of giving up a little bit more before Mickemeier's range came into play. That's why they're playing off just a tad deeper than normal.
Rusty Jackson with a 38-yard punting average will kick it away for the Buffalo Bills. Going back for the Minnesota Vikings, number 87, Kevin Miller. At his own 15, and he is covered at the 19, or Lynn Willis rather. So Jackson, who has been rather busy this afternoon with his punting game, popped one down inside the 20, and with 1:03 left to play in the first half, the Vikings have a 10-0 lead and the football. Ricky Young and Robert Miller will be the running backs for Minnesota. You see Ahmad Rashad, who comes out wide to the left side. Going to the right is Sammy White and Jerry Butler in the slot right. Tommy Kramer calls his play, and Kramer will go to the air. Throwing on the run and throws it out of bounds. Rashad was downfield and would have been the closest receiver. He just dumped it away. Sherman White, 83, was putting tremendous pressure on for the Buffalo Bills. And we talked about the Vikings being a different kind of team, taking a different kind of offensive look. George, I would say with a minute left to play in the first half, an 10-0 lead, indeed, that is a different look offensive idea for Minnesota.
You bet. They're utilizing talent the best way they think they can. As a result, They're throwing the ball, putting it up in the air, using a lot different kind of offense that they have in the past, but one that's proven to be more effective in recent weeks.
2nd and 10, 3 wide receivers out again. This time it is Robert Miller right through the middle. And Miller takes it to the 21 for about a 6-yard pickup, and Sherman White, 83, the 8-year veteran from California, made the tackle. Steve Riley, the #1 draft choice and left tackle of Minnesota, 1974 vintage, opened the hole. Coming up at halftime, NFL 79 scores and highlights of the other games, and a report here from Minnesota. Charles Romes covers Robert Miller. Now we're down to 26 seconds and the clock running, and they're going to line that ball up. It's short of a first down. It'll be 4th down, about 1.5 yards. And the clock shows 20 and down to 19. Vikings, or the Bills rather, have 2 timeouts remaining. And finally the clock is stopped with 19 seconds to go in the first half. As the punting unit will come on, Jerry Burns, the offensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings, along with Tommy Kramer, and Jerry's done a super job up here.
He sure has. That again, Tommy Kramer, as we look at the Minnesota Buffalo score, Minnesota on top at this particular point, and I hope you folks are enjoying the Jim Marshall Day as much as we are, as much as Minnesota seems to be at this point. Tommy Kramer, first real year he's had a chance to start and do well, have a complete season. Last year he had the unfortunate injury versus the LA Rams, didn't finish out the year, came back, got the leadership established this year, became a little more vocal after his injury versus the Rams, and has really become a dominant force, leadership force with this ball club, one that Bud Grant says will be a great leadership force and a great talent for years to come.
Well, the Bills, of course, are not enjoying Jim Marshall Day here in Minnesota, and when we refer to Jim Marshall Day, I think it's a privilege for anyone to be in on a day like this when a great player plays his last home game, whether it be in Buffalo, Minnesota, whether it be in Miami or Tampa Bay, wherever. Keith Moody is back deep for the Greg Coleman punt. So look out for those Bills coming up in the second half. They can really explode, and they're only down by 10. And we've got a flag, and Minnesota will be hit with a delay of the game penalty. You know, with a pretty good run back, the Bills could at least be in field goal range to get on the board. You never can tell.
Well, they could, but Minnesota probably thinking.
Delay of game, offense, still 4th down.
Since the field was frozen over and it's matted down with a little bit of mud in the middle, that the chances of Mickelmeyer hitting a fairly long field goal are somewhat remote.
Greg Coleman. Oh, he got a good one. Driving Keith Moody way back to his own 30-yard line, and you saw him slip and go down, and he is down on his own 29 as Coleman popped a beauty, and Jim Marshall brings the defensive unit on. That was a 48-yard kick by Greg Coleman. 11 seconds remaining to play in the first half. Coleman, who's out of Florida A&M, is a 40-yard average. Normally, Jim Marshall will play about half the game, but I have a hunch that in this one he will spend much more time on the field than Randy Holloway, who is the heir apparent to the job. Roland Hooks and Mike Collier will go up against this defensive unit now, as they're the running backs. Right now it is Collier is the lone setback as the pass is dumped off to Jerry Butler, and Butler hits the open field and goes up to the 45, and 2 seconds remain as the Bills call a timeout to stop the clock as Butler gets the first down across the 45 of Buffalo and a 15-yard pickup. So the Bills have one more shot with 2 seconds remaining.
One more shot. Ferguson probably going back, throwing it up for grabs, and of course they have what they call the Big Ben pattern, and they've used it earlier this year. We may see it now. 3 wide receivers on one side running down, hoping to get a tip or an accident on the part of the Minnesota defense that could give them a score to end the half. It worked before. Whether they try it or not, we'll see if they put 3 wide receivers in the game.
Coming up next, NFL report at halftime. Minnesota leading by a score of 10-0. NFL 79 coming up at halftime. And we'll take a look at some of the other scores, review what's happened in this game, a little nostalgia about Jim Marshall possibly. Good day in Minnesota for the final game of the season weather-wise. Bud Grant, who has paced those sidelines for a number of years, has seen a lot of winning ball clubs, and Chuck Knox is out to build the same kind of thing for Buffalo. Here are the three wide receivers right there. Ferguson puts her high in the air, and the ball is caught on the 14-yard line, but the clock runs out. Jerry Butler went over that traffic and caught that football. The Vikings were laying off. They were not going to foul and give Buffalo another play. So the first half comes to an end. There was a 41-yard pass play to end the first half. And at the end of the first half, the Vikings lead 10-0. Minnesota 10, Buffalo nothing. Now to Bryant Gumbel in New York for NFL 79. Here you go, Bryant. Really belongs to Jim Marshall. And for the first half, it has belonged to the Minnesota Vikings because they have a 10-0 lead. Jim Marshall announcing his retirement a week ago, a little more than that, I guess. But anyway, this is his last home game. His family was here. He was paraded around the field prior to the ball game in an open convertible. Then Rick Danmeyer kicked a 31-yard field goal with 3 minutes and 25 seconds left to play in the first half. And that's all the scoring in this game. Merle Herman and George Coons with you here at Bloomington, Minnesota. 42 degrees at game time on this final home game of the year for the Minnesota Vikings. And so otherwise, it's been very, very pleasant. But George, as we approach the second half, and once again, the honored Jim Marshall here this afternoon. But as we go into the second half, and Marshall now is 3 halves away from the end of the career, I know there will be a lot of emotion on the part of the Vikings here in the second half, and certainly the Bills have got to get it going as we look at the game statistically for the first half.
Well, I think Jim Marshall will be proud of both defenses. Offensive performances not being a great standout in the first half of play. Total yards, 121 for the Bills, 111 for the Vikings. Penalties playing a big role in why the Bills are down by 10 points at this particular point in time. First downs, very close. Yards rushing, minimal. Yards passing, very close. Turnovers, 1 turnover for the Viking. Time of possession, as you can see, the time of possession for the Vikings, very minimal. Bills having the most amount of time. Again, the Bills dug their hole in the first half. If they can climb out of it and quit getting costly penalties, it will stop drives. Then, as a result, I think the Bills will come back. Here we go as we see some folks trying to put up a sign telling their opinion of the draft, telling their opinion of the Minnesota Vikings and what they hope will be a successful rebuilding program through the draft and through the young players they have now. Will know that the fans not only will want to see an old pro like Jim Marshall go, but have the confidence in Bud Grant to go ahead and put together another Minnesota team that will, again, go to the Super Bowl and maybe this time around win one.
All right, it is 10-0, and the Vikings have the lead. Bud Grant, who played his college football right here at the University of Minnesota, just a few miles away. Mickemeyer will be kicking off, and going back deep for the Minnesota Vikings, number 32, Jimmy Edwards. Jimmy is a flyer, a rookie out of Northeast Louisiana. Most valuable player in 1977 in the CFL, but a rookie in the NFL. Mickemeyer kicks it short. And the Bills go for the recovery, and I believe they come up with it. There's a different kind of onside kick, a little looper that certainly went to 10 yards, more than that. And the Bills went charging downfield to cover it. You saw Higgins down there. You saw Powell down there. And let's see if it holds.
A perfect attempt by Mickemeyer, dropping it in that free zone between the deep wedge and the front line. Here, good pursuit, good hustle by the Buffalo line as they get down and recover the ball on the Minnesota 38-yard line. 1st and 10, Buffalo Bills.
All right. It was Lynn Willis who got the recovery. And so the Bills open up here in the third quarter with the football after kicking off. They're on the 38-yard line of Minnesota. Joe Ferguson at quarterback. To the tailback. And Roland Hooks straight ahead down across the 35 to the 34. Getting about 3 to 4 yards. Kurt Knopf made the tackle for Minnesota, the free safety, number 25. He's a 4-year man out of the University of Kansas. It'll be 2nd down and 6 after a gain of 4. Roland Hooks 25, Mike Collier 35 are the running backs for the Buffalo Bills. Curtis Brown injured in the first half. They thought he might be back in the second half, but he is not starting the second half. Split wide to the left is Lewis. Butler is to the right for Buffalo. Ferguson going for Butler inside the 10, but it's knocked away. John Turner, number 27, had the coverage. Fred McNeil was really putting the heat on Ferguson.
Oh, Fred McNeil definitely was putting the heat on Ferguson. Good coverage by Turner, though. You can see out of the left side of your screen, McNeil 54 coming in just after Ferguson gets rid of the ball. The coverage not bad. Here, once again, receiver going up. Turner trying to get the ball, batting it down, but Butler not coming up with a catch. Would have been a big play, especially with the onside kick turning out the way it did for the Buffalo Bills. Would have got him back in the ball game in a hurry.
The Bills now face the Viking defense with new defensive backs. Here comes a blitz, and Ferguson pumps it high. And it is dropped by Frank Lewis. He was battling Bobby Bryant for the football. Frank Lewis trying to hold on, and it falls incomplete, and a fourth down coming up for Buffalo. The ball on the 34-yard line of the Minnesota Vikings.
Once again, Ferguson going to the pass, looking left all the way, throwing to Lewis. Good coverage by Bryant. Lewis getting up over Bryant, but Bryant getting up there and working with Lewis's hands so that he drops the ball as he comes down. Good coverage, good effort after the catch by Bryant, which caused an incompletion to that man right there, Frank Lewis.
Rusty Jackson is back to punt for the Buffalo Bills, and Kevin Miller will go deep for Minnesota. Miller will let the ball roll, and it will drop and stop at about the 11. So a good kick by Rusty Jackson out of LSU. So it's the Vikings ball deep in Viking territory, a kick of 24 yards. NBC Sports. We're going to bowl you over starting Christmas Day with the powerhouse Pitt Panthers taking on the Wildcats from Arizona in the Fiesta Bowl. And New Year's Day, Heisman Trophy winner Charles White leads the third-ranked USC Trojans against the number 3 Buckeyes, who are now number 1 in most polls, of Ohio State in a game that could decide the national championship. Then the undefeated Florida State Seminoles face Billy Sims at Oklahoma and the spectacular Orange Bowl, all on NBC on New Year's Day. The Vikings go to the run, and Ted Brown goes out across the 10 to about the 13, and Sherman White, 83, the defensive right end, and Jeff Nixon, the free safety, number 38, come in to make the tackle. That's going to be some battle in that Rose Bowl, huh?
Oh,
USC and Ohio State, the Buckeyes now rated number 1 in several of the polls. The AFC East looks like this. The Bills in third place, Miami and New England still battling it out. Miami, of course, with wins the final 2 ball games, could wrap it up. You'll see the AFC on NBC. The contenders next week. Yes, sir. Flag goes down. The handoff goes to Brown, and the whistle, Miller rather, and the whistle stopped the play before it really got underway.
Kramer again pleading his case, becoming a vocal leader this year. Illegal procedure versus the Vikings, becoming a very vocal leader, a very outgoing personality on the field, much more so than in the past, as we talked about earlier. The Vikings respecting that in this young man, and the officials also, I think.
Illegal formation on the first set. An ineligible receiver was on the end of the line. The set subsequently put an eligible receiver up there. That constitutes an illegal formation. We kill the ball at the snap.
All right, Gordon McCarter. Yes, sir. We pause briefly for station identification. This is the NBC Television Network.
This is WTCN-TV, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Merle Herman and George Coons with you in Bloomington, Minnesota, where Minnesota leads Buffalo 10-0. We're in the third quarter with 13 minutes and 7 seconds to go in the third period. And Tommy Kramer still contesting the call by Gordon McCarter, asking him to please explain why there was an illegal set. And Gordon has already told the world why and how, and it is second down 11. Tony Green has come in as a 5th defensive back. Hardison has come in now for Buffalo up on the line, and it's second down 11 for Minnesota. Number 34, Ricky Young. And he gets a little, Steve Freeman, number 22, makes the tackle. The AFL playoff contenders, here they are. AFC has an AFL look to it, doesn't it? With a few years gone by. Pittsburgh, of course, came over and the realignment, and the Steelers have been a powerhouse over the years. Houston, Denver, San Diego, Cleveland, Miami, New England, all having good years, but somebody's got to lose. LeCount is in now, 3 wide receivers for Minnesota on 3rd down and 8. Kramer's on the move, and he is close to the first down. He needed to inch that ball about another foot or so. Jeff Nixon, the free safety, number 38, came up to smack him down, and that ball was placed just across the 20, and they may have to bring in the sticks.
Again, Tommy Kramer, we look at his stats, not the scrambler that Tarkington was, but he can move. He can get downfield in a hurry when he needs to. And although the Minnesota offense will have a different look, they won't be losing anything on the arm of that young man, Tommy Kramer.
Any part of the ball will do it, and they did it. He's got a stronger arm than Tark.
Yes, he does. He can throw the ball farther downfield than Tarkington could.
Of course, Kramer's got a battery of wide receivers. We've talked about Minnesota going to the air more this year. On the other hand, we talked about Buffalo. Going into the game today, I think there were only 2 plays difference in running and passing for Buffalo. That's how balanced the Buffalo attack has been this year. 1st and 10, Minnesota, just across the 20. Ricky Young breaking 1 tackle, but not the next one. Number 77, Big Ben Williams, and 83, Sherman White. The defensive ends in that 3-man front knock him down.
That front 3, again, bottling up the running game for the Bills. You said it before, those veterans trying to move them out, trying to put the young guys in, but the veterans for the Bill defense have definitely helped the ball club in the defensive category this year. They've given up 1 touchdown in 7 games, and they're still 3-4 in those games.
It is now 2nd down and 11, the ball on the 20. Kramer on the slant in, and it was Bob Tucker that tied in. The intended receiver, Steve Freeman, 22, the strong safety, came up there. And it's now 3rd down and 11 as Tucker goes off the field, and Stu Voigt will bring in the play from Bud Grant. He's the other tight end. Well, let's see. Voigt's going to stay on the sideline. Terry LeCount will come on. That'll give Minnesota 3 wide receivers who can really move it. Tony Green, number 43, comes in for Buffalo, the defensive secondary, giving the Bills that extra defensive back.
Buffalo linebackers faking the blitz.
And Kramer, incomplete, intended for Sammy White, and number 29, Mario Clark, almost had that ball come bouncing right back into his arms. Isaiah Robertson was in there. We have a flag of the play now. Let's see what this one's about. I believe a holding call against Minnesota. Isaiah Robertson has had a good year for the Bills. His first season after 9 years with the Los Angeles Rams.
Holding, number 73, offense, declined, 4th down.
Ron Yeri has been hit with a lot of holding calls this year, and he just got another one.
Ron is, what, an 11-year veteran, first player taken in the 1968 pro draft. A great guy. We'll talk a little bit after this punt about his blocking technique, which can lend a lot to why he's called for holding.
Greg Colvin will kick it away to Keith Moody. Moody, a chance for a return at the 47, midfield. But not too much. 6-7 yards at the most, down to the 46-yard line. Matt Blair makes the tackle there. The Bills have the football. 3rd quarter, Minnesota leading by a score of 10-0. Let's see if the Bills can make a move now as they will take over. Quarter in Bloomington, Minnesota. Buffalo, frustrated all day by penalties and by the Minnesota defense, has the ball in the 46 of the Vikings. Joe Ferguson with Hooks and Collier as a setback. Incomplete. Intended for Butler, and McNeil had a shot at an interception, like almost through his hands. McNeil being consoled by Matt Blair, his linebacking teammate. That's all right, Fred. There'll be another opportunity for you. Now McNeil will go out. fact, two linebackers will go out. Paul Krause, 22, and Tim Baylor, 47, come in to load up that secondary as they anticipate Ferguson going to the air.
You know, and Buffalo's got to throw. They've got nowhere on the ground so far this game. Brown's out of the game. Collier doing a good job. But once again, they're going to have to throw the ball to get that ball in the end zone. They are behind by 10. They're going to have to get at least 13 points to be ahead, not just win, but be ahead. They're going to throw the ball a little bit more.
Butler, wide left. Now Ferguson looking for Lewis, has to dump it off to Mike Collier as fullback, as again the Viking defense, the up front guys are really putting the pressure on Mark Mullaney, 77, and Jim Marshall, number 70. And Marshall is closing out the homestand with a blaze of glory this afternoon. He's having a ball down there. It is now 3rd down and 10.
I believe the secret of it was he was introduced and got a ride around the field in a 1957 Ford convertible.
3rd down, 10. Up over the ball goes Willie Parker, the veteran center. To the top of the screen is Butler. To the near side is Frank Lewis, who's 8 yards away from 1,000 yards on receptions. Again, they tee off on Ferguson, but he gets it away, and it's intercepted. Matt Blair brings it back, and Blair clears the 45 and is dropped at about the 47. Joe Shipp was the intended receiver. Matt Blair, the linebacker, a 6-year veteran out of Iowa State, picked off that pass, and again, the up front guys for Minnesota putting tremendous heat on Joe Ferguson.
Matt Blair bothered by a knee injury now that he had in college. The colder weather in Minnesota taking its toll late in the season. Here Ferguson dropping back. You see Blair, 59, going out of the left side of your screen, but he'll come back into it very vividly in just a moment. Here you see Butler trying to catch the ball. Blair just in front of him, gets a hold of it and turns on that Iowa State speed that made this 6'5" linebacker a terror in college and a fine pro ball player. Here he is, Matt Blair, a big interception return for the Minnesota Vikings.
And a 15-yard return. 10 minutes, 39 seconds left to go in the 3rd quarter. The Vikings lead the Bills 10-0. And the Rams are leading Atlanta big in the 4th quarter. Vikings have the ball, the Viking 46. Vikings ahead 10-0. Tommy Kramer on that draw, giving off to Robert Miller as fullback. Miller to the 47, and Sherman White, 83, the defensive right end, and Isaiah Robertson, number 58, the left side linebacker on the outside, make the tackle. Washington defeated Cincinnati, and St. Louis has a 9-point lead over the Giants. 4th quarter, and Chicago came back to beat Green Bay. Look out for those Bears. Kansas City and Baltimore tied in the 3rd.
2nd and 9 for the Vikings at their 48.
Tommy Kramer, 8 out of 19, 89 yards and 1 interception. Rashad in the slot, White in motion to the right. He lined up as a back. And down goes Kramer, but he got that ball away, and he got it away to Tucker as tight end. Charles Romes made the tackle. Tommy Kramer really went down, but he got that ball away, and Tucker was able to grab it in, and they spotted it about the 46.
A good play call. You see Tucker, 38, leaving the screen. Everybody motion right, rolling right, going back to Tucker with a complement of offensive linemen in front of him. As he turns it upfield, you see no one there for a while. Good play by the Buffalo defense. Charlie Romes, number 26, getting in there, getting a hand on Tucker, bringing him down. Again, Tommy Kramer now 9 for 20, not impressive stats, 95 yards, but he is leading the club, and as the leadership shows on the scoreboard, 10-0 at this juncture, Vikings over Buffalo.
3rd down and 3 now for the Vikings. Kramer wants to go upstairs again, and it's incomplete this time. Stu Voigt, the tight end, number 83. Kramer's really angry at himself. Nixon and Freeman had the coverage. Both quarterbacks have been frustrated today. We saw Joe Ferguson on the sideline a little while ago. He was upset at himself. Kramer feels the same way. They just haven't been able to get totally on track. We really expected more scoring, more airstrikes in this game today than we have seen. So now, once again, it'll be Greg Colvin to kick it away to Keith Moody. And he pops it high. It will take a roll and be downed around the 2. And Coleman, look at him. Is he jubilant or is he not, huh? Coleman dropped that ball around the 2 to 3 yard line, and that's where the Bills will put it in play. A 44-yard kick by this man, Greg Coleman. The Vikings lead by a score of 10-0 with 8 minutes, 43 seconds remaining to be played in the third quarter. We'll be right back to see if Buffalo can move the ball. Well, the Minnesota Vikings have pinned the Bills down again. The Bills have the ball of their own 3. Oakland leading Cleveland 7-0 in the first quarter. We'll be right back to see if Buffalo can move the ball. Well, the Minnesota Vikings have pinned the Bills down again. The Bills have the ball of their own 3. Oakland leading Cleveland 7-0 in the first quarter. And many of you will be going with us to that ball game when this one is over. Hooks and Collier are the setbacks. Joe Ferguson calls it for the Bills. It's Collier across the 5. He gets out near the 8. Running behind Joe Devlin, number 70, the big right tackle. Doug Sutherland, 69, and Tommy Hannon, number 45, make the tackle. So a gain of 6 yards. It'll be 2nd down 4 for the Bills.
Ferguson using Collier very, very well in certain situations, getting him up there, getting the yardage he needs to be able to drop back and not be in the end zone if he likes to throw the ball.
Ferguson, 2nd and 4, calls it. Again, it is Collier, and he is at the 10. Might have moved as far as the 11, and then really took a pop. Shot down by James White, 72, Fred McNeil, 54. The inside tackle and linebacker on the right side. 3rd down 2 coming up. How about this score in the first quarter, though? San Francisco ahead of Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay has really had trouble locking up that NFC Central. They've lost 2 in a row, and going into the game today, they're 9-5. With the Bears winning today, the Bears are now 9-6. So the heat is on the Buccaneers. 3rd down 3 for Buffalo. Ferguson, and it is incomplete. Lewis, the intended receiver, jolted by Turner, 27, and Hannon, 45 from the secondary, and Buffalo will have to punt it away.
Great coverage. Hannon was all over his man. Ferguson trying to get him to go upfield with a down and up to try to break open, but Hannon right there with great defense to make that pass incomplete.
Rusty Jackson, who has spent a lot of time in the end zone today, kicking him out of there. This time has a little more room, though. He's been in the back of the end zone twice. Kevin Miller, 87, is back for Minnesota.
Minnesota going for the return this time.
Ooh, what a pop this time by Rusty Jackson. Kevin Miller in his own 40. He's still on his feet and still looking for some place to go. Finally brought down at his own 44 by Doug Green, number 21, with some help by Willie Parker, number 61. 7 minutes, 6 seconds to go in the third quarter here at Minnesota. And once again, after that 50-yard punt and a very good one by Rusty Jackson, Minnesota has the football. See, I told you it was warm here today. You don't have to have the parkas or anything else. 42 degrees at game time.
Well, I wouldn't exactly call it beach wear.
No, but it's close. At the 44, Minnesota leading 10-0. Kramer back over the middle, and at the 40-yard line, he hits his man. Well, let's see. Ahmad Rashad, who had the touchdown earlier, but I don't believe the play is going to stand because there was a flag drop. Jim Haslett and Mario Clark were back on the hit. Here comes the call.
Holding, number 78, offense. Face mask, number 77, defense. The play is nullified. Replay, first down.
Well, you heard it all. It's nullified. A penalty against each team. Steve Riley, 78, guilty of holding. Then we had a face mask called against the Buffalo Bills. And Steve Riley said, I did not hold. Now, George Coons, we talked about Ranieri earlier being guilty of holding a lot this year. How did you play all those years without ever being caught for a holding penalty?
I paid officials very well. But, again, the way that Minnesota coaches their offensive linemen to block is a little bit different than the way we were taught. And if we can ever get it in, we will talk about it, believe me, because it is different.
On the draw, Ricky Young back to the line of scrimmage and maybe a yard. Sherm White, 83, makes the tackle.
When Minnesota's offensive linemen are taught to block, and they've done it very effectively through the years, Ron Yeri in particular, they take people on at the line of scrimmage, and they believe in hitting people at the line of scrimmage, not floating back with them. So as a result, when a player gets a little bit older, his hits aren't as quick. He's not as quick coming back off the ball. People are looking at that. Defensive lineman might get a little bit of a jump, and as a result, you hit and you have a tendency to be thrown a little bit. And when you leave that guy, when that defensive lineman starts to defeat you, it's very easy to get out there and grab a piece of cloth, which is what's happening. Again, other people float back and ride people out of bounds past the quarterback. Minnesota takes them on close to the line of scrimmage.
Voigt, the tight end, was down, but so was Kramer, hit by Isaiah Robertson, who was coming on the blitz. Voigt had floated out. You saw him in motion coming back to the near side, and he was the primary target for Kramer, but he just couldn't get the ball to him.
Good pressure on the part of Buffalo this time, trying to get the ball to Voigt was Kramer. Here you see Voigt coming out. He'll be all alone as he looks for the ball down this way, but good pressure by the Buffalo defense made all this effort by Voigt go unchallenged.
Now the Vikings send Voigt to the sideline and bring in Terry LeCount, so they have 3 speedsters as wide receivers in on 3rd down 9. Kramer going for the bomb, and he overshoots Terry LeCount, who was a quarterback at the University of Florida, converted to a wide receiver by the Minnesota Vikings, but Kramer missed his target, overshooting.
Boy, you should have seen Kramer as after he let the ball go, he started doing backflips in the backfield, knowing that he'd overthrown LeCount. And LeCount is not an easy man to overthrow. He's got good speed, gets down there all right. But once again, a little longer pass than Kramer wanted, and a young quarterback will do that on occasion. A little longer pass than he wanted meant that it's an incompletion instead of a touchdown.
Greg Colvin will kick it to Keith Moody. 10-0 Minnesota, 6 minutes, 10 seconds to play in the 3rd quarter. Not a very good kick. A squibber. And for one of the few times, Buffalo is going to come out of this thing with real good field position, as Colvin, who popped a long one on his last punt, was short on this one. So 6:04 to go in the 3rd quarter. Timeout here in Bloomington. Minnesota leading by a score of 10-0. I don't think there's any doubt that Jim Marshall is getting more playing time in today than in other games this season, but after all, this is a very special day for him. 3rd longest career in the NFL, behind George Blanda and Earl Morrall. That's Lewis in motion to the left. Roland Hooks almost broke it to the outside. He did pick up some important yardage as he crossed his own 45 before Kurt Knopf could bring him down at the 48-yard line. So it's a gain of 8. It'll be 2nd down and 2 for the Buffalo Bills, who have not been able to dent the Minnesota goal line this afternoon.
Roland Hooks having a much better year this year than is Terry Miller having. There's been a lot of speculation. People have said that Miller hurt his knee. Buffalo press corps said that Miller hurt his knee, but a lot of other people are wondering whether Roland Hooks is just playing a little better ball and Terry not living up to the potential he established last year.
2nd and 2. This time, number 35, Mike Collier gets the call, and he is knocked down near the midfield stripe. Mark Mullaney, 77, the defensive end, and Kurt Knopf, number 25, the strong safety, stop him. But Mike Collier, the 4-year veteran from Morgan State, gets the 1st down. The Viking defensive unit has played well today. The Bills have been rebuilding under Chuck Knox and have really come along well. They're at 500 ball going into the game this afternoon. Butler to the right, Lewis to the left. 1st down at midfield. Hooks going the other way. McKenzie out there to lead the block, but it doesn't work. And it doesn't work because number 59, Matt Blair, the linebacker, with Fred McNeil on the pursuit, break up the play.
Oh, this is just super pursuit on the part of Blair. Here you see 77 Mullaney chasing Hooks as he goes there. Again, Matt Blair just right there at the right spot at the right time. 6'5" frame, taking the ball carrier down, having an exceptional day. Jim Marshall's having a great day. Blair's having a good day. The whole Minnesota defense is alive to the fact that Jim is playing in front of this crowd for the last time, and really, I think, wants to give him a good send-off to the folks at home.
And on that last running play, I said it was McKenzie. It was DeLamalure who was out there in front. Second down, 10. Ferguson, and he's got Butler wide open, but he overthrew him. Butler down the sideline, was down there all by himself. We've got a flag.
Bobby Bryant was just left in the dust. It looks like he fell down. As a result, Butler, with that great speed of his, just blew right by, got downfield, the pass a little off. Could have been a different story with a touchdown pass. Holding call, it looks like, against Minnesota.
Ferguson is now 8 out of 19 for 115 yards and 1 interception. Ferguson for the year, 14 touchdowns, 12 interceptions.
Holding, number 20, defense, 5 yards, automatic first down.
Bobby Bryant, number 20, on the holding call. Well, here is the penalty yardage. Buffalo has really been hurt, and at the wrong time. I guess penalties always come at the wrong time, though. First down, automatic first down. This is Collier, breaks one tackle. He got about 2 yards, or he lost 2 yards. Mark Mullaney, 77, and Jeff Seaman, 50, wrapped him up.
Again, Seaman's play on that, a big reason for Seaman's good play was the fact that Mullaney beat his block on Joe Devlin, number 70, and as a result, Mullaney, number 77, forced the play back inside. Seaman, being a fine middle linebacker, was there to stop it. It's exactly what happened. Joe Devlin got beat. Mullaney, a big play on the outside, causing the runner to take it back inside right into the arms of Seaman.
McNeil and Seaman go out as linebackers. Krause and Baylor come in as Minnesota overloads the defensive secondary with backs. 2nd and 12. Ferguson to Butler, incomplete in the 30. And Paul Krause, who set an NFL record for pass interceptions a week ago, he has 81 to break M. Tennell's record, was there on the coverage. There's Paul Krause, number 22, and it's possible that he'll be retiring this year at the end of this season.
Well, they've mentioned, besides Jim Marshall, they've also mentioned Wally Hilgenberg and Paul Krause, as you said. Paul, playing a 6-man defensive back in that type of situation, may come back for another year, but you never really know. I think Wally Hilgenberg, with the business interests he has, will probably get out of the game, don't you, Merle?
I would think so. I really would. That's what Ferguson has done today. 3rd down, 12 for Buffalo. Ferguson zips over the middle, incomplete. Intended for the tight end, Joe Shipp, but underthrown. Matt Blair, the linebacker, putting the heat on Joe Ferguson again, and the Bills continue to be frustrated by the Viking defense here in the 3rd quarter. Minnesota leading by 10 as Rusty Jackson will come on, and Joe Ferguson has had a tough afternoon. Well, Joe's had a great year, though. He really has. He's the top quarterback in the AFC in point percentage, second only to Staubach in the NFL.
You know, you look at both these teams as they're on the sideline, and nobody's happy. Kramer's off there. He's winning the game by 10 points. Ferguson's on the sideline. He's got a reason to be disgusted, but the Vikings are winning, and nobody seems to be enjoying themselves over there.
Jackson kicks a line drive to Miller. Kevin heads for the far side, and he is trapped over there by number 21, Doug Green. A kick of 36 yards, and Green was right there on him. Dave Huffman was trying to set up the block there. All right, the Vikings will take the football again with 2 minutes, 39 seconds left to go in the 3rd quarter. We've got a timeout. December 9th, and it's tropical in Bloomington, Minnesota. Well, not quite tropical, but very nice here this afternoon. Final home game of the year for the Vikings, who are trying to get to the 500 level, and Buffalo is there trying to move ahead of it. Vikings ball at the 16. Robert Miller, the fullback, breaking a tackle, and Miller moving and going up across the 30, up to the 35, and finally brought down around the 36 by Mario Clark, number 29, the left cornerback. And Isaiah Robertson, number 58, had a piece of him. A gain of 20 yards on the play.
A little break tackle here, and you get a 20-yard gain out of it. Miller taking it around the right side. Looks as if he stopped. 3 people there. 59, Shane Nelson missing. You see 57, Lucius Sanford trying to get after him. Finally, Mario Clark brings him down. A great effort by Miller. 20 yards out of the hole, back towards the midfield situation for the Vikings. Let's see if Kramer tries to put it up again or runs the ball this time.
First down, Minnesota. A minute 54 seconds to play in the third quarter. Little play action. And Robert Miller coming out of the backfield to take that one in was Robertson, 58, on the coverage. So Robert Miller runs and Robert Miller catches. And Isaiah Robertson tackles. Gain of 4, 2nd and 6. You know, looking back at the statistics in the first half, total net yards for Buffalo, 121. The Vikings, 111. Buffalo had the ball most of the time. I mean, they, by a wide margin, the Bills had the ball, but they couldn't do anything when they had the ball. Miller's longest rush of the year, his previous longest run was 10, but he hasn't played much. Second down. Kramer started running out of real estate and looked like he was throwing the ball to Chuck Knox.
You know, with the conclusion of that play, the leading receiver for the Minnesota Vikings is Ahmad Rashad, and he has a total of 2 catches today. 7 other players have 1 catch each, but 2 catches for the leading receiver of the Vikings from that man there, Kramer.
Here's
Robertson out here in the flat all by himself. Taking a look around, running out of real estate is Kramer as he throws the ball up, and Isaiah just can't get his hands on it. Even if he had, it looks like he's almost out of bounds. Maybe that left foot was, but anyway, out of real estate is Robertson as he tries to catch the ball also.
Third down, 6. Good rush as Kramer goes down, but it is caught by Robert Miller, and it's good for a first down. Kramer really took a pop, but he got the pass away, and Robert Miller pulled it down for a first down as they get about 8 yards on the play. Nelson and Nixon converge to make the tackle.
Well, Kramer can really thank Miller for catching that ball the way he did. The pass a little bit high. You see he gets the ball away just before he's decked, but a fine catch. Up in the air goes Miller as he brings it down. There, 38 is Nixon for the tackle. A little help from his friends. Ahmad Rashad looking on. The ball at the 50-yard line.
Kramer gone for it all this time, and he is going for Rashad, and Nixon had the coverage. And again, Kramer hits the deck. Kadeish on the last play put tremendous pressure on him. On this play, it was Sherman White who decked Kramer.
That whole front three, again, they're getting a better pass rush out of that group. They're playing better this year than they have in the last 3 or 4, and it's indicative of the performance they've had on defense. 7 games, 1 touchdown, and still, what I can't believe in situations like that is they lost 4 of those 7 games.
Now the Vikings, with 15 seconds to go in the third quarter, have a second down and 10 near the midfield stripe. White is in there along with, let's see, the count. It's going to be Rashad in motion to the right, and this time they'll go to the running play. Robert Miller gets racked up as he goes into Buffalo territory to the 48. Jim Haslett, 55, the linebacker, along with Shane Nelson, his counterpart of the inside, making the tackle, and Tommy Kramer is looking at that helmet like saying, hey, I'd like to have a little more padding in there. The gun sounds to end the third period as Kramer continues to get popped here. At the end of the third quarter, Minnesota leads Buffalo by a score of 10-0, and the Vikings have the ball as we open up. Merle Herman and George Coons with you again in Bloomington, Minnesota. We really don't need these things. It's really nice here in Minnesota.
Yes, we
today,
do. We need them.
We'll have the address for you again if you'll get pencil and paper ready. And we'll give you the address for your tax-deductible dollars. Tommy Kramer slipping and throwing and getting that ball away as again he goes down. Rashad was the intended receiver, but Tommy couldn't get any zip on that ball. He was trying to get his footing.
One of the old names in offensive line play is that man right there, Ron Yeri. Here, Ben Williams, number 77, and number 74, D. Hardison, one of the stronger guys in the Bill team, trying to get by him. Again, good pressure from the outside. Kramer gets hit, throws the ball, hits the ground. Yeri, a guy who's been around 11 years, aging a little bit, but still a kind of competitive person that the Vikings want around to help regenerate an interest by younger players and an established veteran moving Minnesota Viking ball club.
Greg Coleman gets a good kick away and is taken by Keith Moody on a fair catch on the 11. So the Bills will have the ball at their own 11-yard line, and Greg Coleman popped that one 36 yards. He's done a good job for the Vikings this afternoon. All right, let's go back to the Olympic address now. Send your tax-deductible contributions for our American Olympic athletes to U.S. Olympics, Post Office Box 1980P, Cathedral Station, Boston, Massachusetts, 02118.
First and 10 for the Bills up there. Wow.
The Bills, who have been operating from their back door, it seems, most of the afternoon, will go now from just outside the 11-yard line. Mike Collier, a stand-up tackle. Jeff Seaman, 50, the middle linebacker, the 8-year veteran from Stanford, making the stop. Jeff Seaman walked in here the first year, got an opportunity to play, I think, because somebody was injured.
Wally Hildenberg
right.
was injured, and as a result, Wally was traded to Atlanta because of Seaman's play. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Lonnie Warwick.
Lonnie Warwick,
okay,
right.
Outside, yes.
Okay, there we go.
Play.
Lonnie Warwick was the guy. Second down, 10. No gain on the last play. Ferguson, a little play action. And incomplete. Mike Collier coming out of the backfield. Jim Marshall putting the heat on. So it'll be third down and 10. Don't forget to stay tuned later today for the second half of our exciting doubleheader. The Raiders host the Browns. All later today on NBC. Most of you will be seeing that game, and right now Oakland is leading in that game by a score of 7-0. And we'll be going to that one for most of you when this game is over. Third down, 10. Minnesota leading 10-0. We're in the final period. Ferguson hitting Frank Lewis at the 25, and he has thrown back about 3 yards, but number 27, John Turner, who had the coverage.
When you look at Ferguson, you got to think he's just a little bit discouraged with his performance today. The offensive team came in here, and Buffalo's offense is nothing short of awesome this year. They've done a great job. Ferguson not living up to advanced billing coming into the game, and I think he realizes that and wants to play better, and as a result has a tendency to get down on himself, trying to push himself to do a little more. Here Frank Lewis has gone over 1,000 yards for the season. Not bad for a 9-year vet.
No
wide receiver.
He needed 8 and he got 12 on that last play. And a whistle stopping play before it can get going. So Frank Lewis now has 1,004 yards. I believe we have a procedure call against Buffalo. So we have an illegal procedure call against the Buffalo Bills. Joe Devlin, the right tackle, I believe, was the guilty party.
Well, I guess I'll call it procedure since there's no term for straightening up too soon. But again, Frank Lewis, when you talk about a guy...
Number 70 offense, still first down.
When you talk about a guy of Lewis's character and ability, Charlie Taylor, formerly of the Washington Redskins, had a great line. He said that when you get older, you don't really age, you become like a fine wine. And Lewis is proving that today and has proved it all year long with the performance he's had. As we look at Devlin, who wanted to get a quick set for Mulaney, number 77, and as a result, just got started a little too quick.
First and 15 now for Buffalo. Ferguson, and it is intercepted again by Matt Blair, his second interception of the day. Intended for Jerry Butler, and Blair stepped up there to pick off number 2 this afternoon. So the Minnesota defensive unit has pretty much been the story. In fact, has been the story since Tommy Kramer took Minnesota 80 yards on 8 plays in the first period.
Take a look at Joe Ferguson's looks tells the story. He goes there, he folds his arms,
and all he can do is say, geez, I wish I hadn't done that again. Matt Blair, on the other hand, finally got some life into the Minnesota group. Marshall hugging in there. Number 47, Tim Baylor, offering his congratulations as Minnesota has the ball on the Buffalo 28-yard line.
Kramer looking upstairs. And it's incomplete, intended for 35, Robert Miller coming out of the backfield. Charles Romes, number 26, the right quarterback, had the coverage on the play. It'll be 2nd down and 10 for Minnesota. Bob Tucker comes back in at tight end with the play, dropping it off to Tommy Kramer. And Stu Voigt goes to the sideline. There's Bob Tucker, used to be with the New York Giants out of Bloomsburg State. 10-year veteran of the NFL. Tommy Kramer, 3 years for the Vikings. This time, Ricky Young powering his way to about the 22, inching toward the 20. They may spot that ball around the 21. Lucius Samford and Nixon make the tackle. Minnesota will be at New England, Buffalo at Pittsburgh to wrap it up next week.
That last line charge is reminiscent of the Vikings of old. The offensive line got off on the ball. Good yardage. Bob Tucker, even number 38, a guy who's not noted for his blocking, got a standoff with his man as the ball carrier advanced it down to the 20.
Gain of 7, 3rd down 3. Sammy White coming in motion to the right side. Ricky Young again blasting for the 1st down. It'll be close, possibly close enough for a measurement. Well, they unstack him down there, and there's a pretty good pile. And Hazlitt, 55, Katie, 71, Nelson, 59, all in there. And it's 4th down and about 1 or a half or whatever. Well, they're going to bring the sticks out. Too close to call.
Well, it's really not, as Bud Grant looks on, it's really not a bad thing to go for. His defense has been playing well all day. He really, with a 10-point edge, a touchdown isn't going to win it for Buffalo. They haven't been playing well offensively. Even if they throw the bomb, the Vikings are still ahead. If he gets the ball with a 1st down coming in here, he has a chance to go in for 6. It may put the game on ice. It looks as if they're going to go for it. So let's see what Bud's called as he sends us a play with number 74 Myers and again with 38 Tucker.
4th down and 1 for the Minnesota Vikings. Robert Miller and Ricky Young are the setback.
I bet it's a pass.
Tucker in motion. Robert Miller going for the 1st down, and it will be close. The Bills say no. The Vikings, of course, say yes. And referee Gordon McCarter says the easiest way to settle this is bringing the sticks again. Jim Hazlitt and Shane Nelson, 55 and 59, the inside linebackers, made the tackle. 11 minutes, 59 seconds left to play in this game, and most of you will be seeing the remainder of this game. Oakland leading Cleveland 10-0 in the 2nd quarter out in Oakland. George and I'll be out there next week for the Raiders' final game.
It should have been a pass.
Boy, by that much they missed it.
Usually when the Vikings get in a short yardage situation and put Tucker and Voigt on the same side, one of them in a wing position, they will throw the ball to one of their tight ends. This time they ran away from that tendency right towards Frank Myers' side. Number 74 didn't get the 1st down.
So the Bills take over. And every time the Bills' offensive unit comes on the field, Joe Ferguson's got to be thinking to himself, this time we got to do it. We got to move the football. It's been a tough day for him. Hooks and Collier the setback. Ferguson going upstairs, and it is incomplete, intended for Frank Lewis. The coverage by Tommy Hannon, number 45. Tommy Hannon wanted to be a defensive back all the way. In fact, when he was recruited by Michigan State, he was a great running back in high school. And he went to Michigan State on the promise that he would be a defensive back. He wanted to hit people, I guess. Anyway, they switched him to the offensive unit as a freshman, and he almost left school. Then they put him, yes, and then they put him with a defensive unit, and he was happy after that.
Well, that's a reversal of roles from standard operating procedure.
He had 7 tackles last week against Los Angeles. San Francisco leading Tampa Bay at the half, 10-0. Ferguson, incomplete, almost intercepted. Studwell came up. Hooks was the intended receiver, and Scott Studwell stepped in front of him, and had he caught that ball, he might have been a linebacker that scored a touchdown today.
Studwell on a big play. Ferguson saying, well, what can I do? You know, everything's been working so well all year, and all of a sudden, nothing comes out of this bag of tricks. The Buffalo offense has just really been nullified by the Minnesota defense at this point. Here, a big play. I don't know if it's an interception attempt, but it's certainly an attempt to knock the ball down. And Studwell does just that as he goes flying by the intended receiver on a big defensive play for Minnesota. 3rd and 10, 4th quarter.
Ferguson zips one to near the 30-yard line. It is caught by Frank Lewis, and he is brought down by John Turner. And I believe he has the first down. He does. Ball is just shy of the 30.
Minnesota blitzing that time, affording the defensive backs a single coverage. The defensive backs, Hannon in particular, not wanting to give up a touch. As a result, gives a little too much room. Lewis takes the catch, brings it down, but good coverage by Turner, number 27 right there. Not good enough. First down, Buffalo, as they move the ball out to about the 30-yard line.
You probably saw Reggie McKenzie put on a big block there for Ferguson. White with a pressure, and the pass is knocked down. James White coming from the right side. And number 69, Doug Sutherland, threw his hands up to bat that ball down.
Now, Ferguson just threw that ball a little bit low. Sutherland is not really tall, is 6'3", but again, not overpoweringly tall for a defensive lineman. Look at this. 10-0 San Francisco over Tampa Bay. San Francisco 1-13 as of this week, going against Tampa Bay at home and doing a great job of it, Merle.
Talking about throwing the ball and the 3,000-yard throwers, Steve DeBerge out there is one of them.
That's right, one of 3 in the NFC.
2nd down, 10. White chasing Ferguson out of the pocket. A wobbly pass. It's incomplete. Frank Lewis was the receiver out there, intended receiver. Joe Shipp was up close, and Ferguson continues to be on the run.
You know, if he were hunting ducks with Burt Jones in Louisiana, which he does on occasion, Burt would have shot that ball. It looked like a wounded duck going downfield. And I'm sure Joe knows he's not playing extremely well today. Here he is setting up as he looks, moves around a little bit with a good rush by number 72, James White. But when he throws, he doesn't get the motion into it, and as a result, the ball wobbles downfield. Ferguson 10 for 27 for 139 yards and 2 interceptions as of today. And throwing balls like that is one of the reasons why. Not a good day for Joe.
3rd down, 10. Lou Picone, 89 in the slot right, has joined the wide receivers. And Ferguson throws incomplete. Turner had the coverage in the area on number 80, Jerry Butler. So now the Bills will have to punt it away. It's 4th down and 10. The Bills have not been able to move the football. It's on the 29-yard line of Buffalo, and the kicking unit comes on. Rusty Jackson has moved out on the field for the Buffalo Bills. As well, we've said it so many times.
Both quarterbacks on the sidelines have shown lots of frustration today.
Rusty Jackson, who is a third-year man out of LSU, and Kevin Miller is back for Minnesota. Line drive shot to Kevin Miller at the 32. Drops back inside the 30 and looks for a block and is not there. And number 21, Doug Green, is downfield to make the tackle. 39-yard punt. 10 minutes, 35 seconds left to play here at Bloomington, Minnesota. And the Vikings lead the Buffalo Bills by a score of 10-0. In the 2nd inning, the Jets lead New England 7-5. The field goal with the safety.
San Diego dominating New Orleans at this point in the 2nd quarter, 21-0.
The Vikings go to the run. Ricky Young takes it to the 30 and is dropped on the 31.
Number 58, Isaiah Robertson, is in there. 55, Jim Haslett, both linebackers. Ron Yerry, number 73, led the block. And Sherman White, 83, was in on the action defensively, too. The gain, 3 yards. 2nd down, 7. Sports World, NBC Sports World salutes the champions of '79. We'll review the many magic moments with an exciting look at the year's major events from Swan Super Bowl to Stargell Series and more. Don't miss Sports Year 79, a salute to the champion, Saturday, December 22nd on Sports World. It'll be a great show. Ricky Young on the swing, cuts back to the middle, no place to go. Gets another yard maybe, and that's all. Lucius Sanford, number 57, the linebacker out of Georgia Tech, makes the stop.
Lucius Sanford, not a big guy, but extremely fast. 6'2", 216 pounds. Not many linebackers in the league with just 216 pounds on their frame. But again, Lucius getting out there, good pursuit. He's noted for his quickness and speed. He sure displayed it there. Ricky Young, on the other hand, for the Minnesota Vikings, 10 rushes for 25 yards for the Vikings. Still trying to catch the ball and help the ball club. As we said earlier, came over in the Ed White trade. He's been a leader in one category or another for the Vikings since he's been here. You see Tommy Kramer's attempts today. Again, not a great day for both quarterbacks, but they're sure trying to move the ball club.
Kramer going to either Sammy White or Ahmad Rashad. They were both in the area, but it drops to the ground. Goes incomplete. Mike Cady, 71, the 7-year veteran out of Notre Dame, again putting pressure on Kramer. Cady's, the nose tackle, has been very active this afternoon.
You know, it's indigenous to the game that as good as your offensive line is playing and dominating the defense, the backside of the quarterback's uniforms usually stay fairly clean. Now we can see that both quarterbacks have dirty backsides.
Greg Coleman will kick it away to Keith Moody. Moody will let the ball roll. It takes a Viking roll down to the 25 and down to the 24, where it's covered there. And the Buffalo Bills will try again. They've tried throughout the afternoon, but have not been able to dent that Minnesota defense. A 43-yard kick. We have a timeout with 8:50 to play. Minnesota leads by 10.
I'm stunned.
You're really stunned, huh? All right, here we go. Very little action here in the second half. No scoring. Minnesota touchdown in the first period, field goal in the second. And the fans have been sitting back waiting for some kind of an explosion. Joe Ferguson clears one out at the 28-yard line to number 25, Roland Hooks. And Jeff Seaman brings him down, so the pass doesn't pick up too much, but it does pick up something. A gain of 4, second down 6. Ferguson has now hit 11 out of 29. Cleveland trailing Oakland 13-0. Most of you will be going with us to that ball game when this one is over. Lou Pacone, Jerry Butler, and Frank Lewis are down as wide receivers for the Buffalo Bills on second down 6.
Ferguson still has plenty of time to get his team back in it if he can start throwing some completions now.
Ferguson staying in the pocket, throwing to Collier, coming out of the backfield. He'll be close to a first down. Fred McNeil, 54, the linebacker, making the stop. You know, George, I know you've been watching the defensive secondary of the Minnesota Vikings, but Ferguson, well, first of all, he's had a lot of pressure on him, but has not been able to throw the deep pass much.
No, basically right now it's because of they're shifting in the nickel backs, bringing him in, taking him out. Linebackers are dropping back deep too. As a result, there's a lot of congestion deep, and if he's trying to get the ball to those deep receivers, he has to have pinpoint accuracy, which he hasn't had today. So he's dumping off to the backs. He's trying to get him to run with the ball, but he's not going to win the game with 7:49 to go in the fourth quarter, throwing to his backs. He's got to get a big play over the top to one of the wide guys. He's going to have to do it in a hurry, because if he doesn't, he can kiss the game goodbye. And at this point, I think he'd rather have, with one more game, with one more win, they can have the first winning season, I think, since 1975. So I'm sure Ferguson would like to go in with a chance of being over 500 for the rest of the year. 5 defensive backs in now, and he's got Pittsburgh to play next week, too. So I think Ferguson realizes if they're going to be over 500, they're going to have to do something this week.
Okay, it's a first down, but the length of the ball, and Ferguson will go upstairs again. Throws back over the middle, and he's got an open man, and that's Pacone. And Pacone is down to the 45, crosses the 45-yard line in Minnesota territory. And Tommy Hanna, number 45, brings him down after a 22-yard pickup. So Lou Pacone, the little guy from West Liberty State, who's only 5'9", 175 pounds, picks up the first down. And Joe Ferguson, as you see, we talked about this before, is the number 2 passer in the NFL in the rating system. And first, of course, in the AFC. Here comes the blitz. And Butler almost one-handed it it. Bobby Bryant was back there on the coverage.
That was almost the big play that Buffalo needed to get back in this game. They're going to have to spend less time in the huddle and more time in the line of scrimmage if they expect to get going with 6:39 to go.
We pause briefly for station identification. This is the NBC Television Network.
This is WTCN-TV, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Merle Harmon and George Coons with you in Bloomington, Minnesota. Minnesota has led since the first quarter when they drove 80 yards in 8 plays for a touchdown, with Tommy Kramer throwing to Ahmad Rashad for 19 yards. Then a Rick Danmeyer field goal of 31 yards in the second quarter, and that's been it. Right now, 2nd and 10. The ball is on the 45 of Minnesota. That was just about number 82. Butler, the intended receiver. Krause, the veteran, who holds the NFL record for career interceptions, just about had another one.
You know, the ball was thrown a little high, but again, Butler could have done something to help the interception not be as obvious. Here you just see Ferguson going back to set up. He'll throw the ball high, but Butler does not come back to the ball. He stays right there. It allows Krause to come in front, almost get the interception. You see Butler going up, but he's not moving back towards Ferguson. As a result, Krause had a shot at the interception with a high pass.
Remember, right after this ball game is over, most of you will be switching with us to Oakland for that Oakland-Cleveland game. The Raiders are leading. We'll keep you updated on it. And we'll be switching to Oakland just as soon as this game is concluded. Ferguson hits his man at the 33-yard line. And it's Frank Lewis, the veteran from Grambling, and John Turner makes the tackle. And now Ferguson has moved the Buffalo Bills into striking distance. He's only 33 yards away now. This drive started on the 24-yard line of Buffalo. So this is the best drive of the day for the Bills.
No doubt what he's going to do. 3 wide receivers, split backfield.
Joe cuts it loose, and he completes it. Frank Lewis is on the way. Frank Lewis trying to break to the outside as a block of the 10, but he doesn't make the getaway as number 25, Kurt Knopf, the 4-year man from Kansas, saved that touchdown as he got him from behind.
You know, Frank Lewis did something there that we talked about Butler not doing. Here again, Ferguson dropping back to pass. He'll throw in the same general area as he throws to Butler, but this time Lewis is there. And when he catches the ball, he's coming back towards it. Bryant, number 20, comes up, tries to get him, but he eludes Bryant, then makes his moves looking for his blockers. Good pursuit brought him down, but a big play by Lewis.
1st and 10, Buffalo, just outside the 10 of Minnesota. Lewis throwing incomplete. Again, a big rush. Duck Sutherland and James White were putting tremendous pressure on Joe Ferguson. The clock is stopped with 5 minutes, 11 seconds left to play here at Bloomington, Minnesota. And the Bills will have a 2nd and 10 on the Minnesota 11.
Not a good pass by Ferguson, but he's got the ball club moving down to the 11-yard line. He can make this game competitive. 5:11 to go. He's got to get in quick, and then if they don't try an onside kick, hope that the defense holds and then get the ball back.
On a Jan Stenerud field goal, Kansas City beat Baltimore 10-7. Second down. They go to the run with the Hooks. Hooks a cut. Hooks inside the 10. Good run by Hooks as he gets down near the 7-yard line. Number 67, Reggie McKenzie, the left guard, leading the play, but Hooks had to get most of that on his own.
Ferguson this time going with a run. He's thrown quite a bit. You see Hooks getting the ball, taking off left, but again, good pursuit. Cuts out the outside running possibilities. Hooks takes it back inside where the congestion is and gets dragged down by the Minnesota defense after a gain of about 3.
It is now 3rd down for the Bills. The ball is on the 7-yard line of Minnesota. Duck Sutherland now playing the left tackle. White the right tackle. Marshall and Mullaney are the defensive ends for Minnesota. 3rd down, Buffalo. Ferguson going for the corner, and the ball is tipped. Intended for Butler, number 27, John Turner. Got his hand on the football, and now Ferguson, I think, wants to call timeout. He's got a 4th down coming up. 4th down in about 6, a little more than that. And we're 4 minutes and 16 seconds away from the end of the ball game, and Joe Ferguson knowing the Bills have got to get on the scoreboard right here. Goes over to talk to Chuck Knox. Now they're down by 10, so Chuck, if he goes for the field goal and gets it, I mean, well, he's got it either way.
3.
Yeah,
he's got to get something. I don't, if he gets a touchdown, he's in good position for it. Chances are that if he gets another drive and they don't have a chance to get 6, they can at least get 3 from a distance. So I don't know. If I were Chuck, I'd probably think, well, let's get some points on the board, which is obviously what he's trying to do. But again, he's putting much more pressure on his offense next time around to get that 7 in there, and he's going to have to go a little farther to get it.
Nick Mickemeyer has come on. He failed on his previous attempt this afternoon. It is 10-0 Minnesota. A little more than 4 minutes left to play. Buffalo has driven 69 yards in this drive, their best drive of the afternoon, and now are faced with a 4th down and 6. Minnesota, of course, is a team that has been noted for blocking field goals. The ball will be held by Dan Minucci on the 15, making it a 25-yard effort by Mickemeyer. He's 7 out of 7 in this range. He is now 8 out of 8. So Mickemeyer kicks a 25-yard field goal, and the Buffalo Bills get on the scoreboard. 4 minutes and 10 seconds left to play in this game. Everybody in this stadium except one guy up there in the top row is looking for an onside kick. Let's see if they do it. Mickemeyer ready. Lots of backs on the field for both teams. Well, the guy in the top row was right. And the ball is down to the Vikings in the end zone. So the Vikes will have it on the touch, coming back to the 20-yard line. And Minnesota has 4 minutes and 2 seconds to work the football and control the clock. The Vikings lead by a score of 10-3.
With being 10 points behind, Knox decided to go for the 3 points, assuring himself of 3 and hoping that he can get in a position to get 7 with 4 minutes to go.
Tonight on NBC, in the tradition of NBC's Jesus of Nazareth, Mary and Joseph, a story of faith, a special 3-hour world premiere on the big event. Then a primetime exclusive interview with Steven Spielberg, director of Jaws. 1st and 10 on the 20. Ricky Young for about 3 to the 23-yard line. Jim Haslett, 55, the inside linebacker, and Jeff Nixon, the free safety, number 38, on the stop for the Buffalo Bills. It'll be 2nd down. I guess he got about 4 yards on that one. 2nd down and 6. 3 minutes, 55 seconds remaining in the game. Ahmad Rashad comes out wide to the right side. Sammy White going wide to the left. Young on the wing right. Kramer going upstairs. And it is incomplete. The flag is thrown. Clark had the coverage on Rashad. And you saw the flag go down.
That call was definitely against Mario Clark as he went over and tried to defend one-on-one on Rashad. Just went ahead and pulled him. The official right there calling it, and a very good call.
The outside linebackers, Robertson and Sanford, were coming.
Pass interference, number 29, defense, automatic 1st down.
Mario Clark is having an outstanding year for Buffalo, and already he's being talked about as an All-Pro this year. It is 1st and 10 for the Vikings at the Viking 38-yard line. Clock showing 3:21 now in this game. Sammy White in motion to the right side. The deep pitch goes to Miller. Miller gets pinned in on the sideline and chased out of bounds at about the 43 by Shane Nelson, 59, the 3-year veteran from Baylor. Nelson has had a good year for the Buffalo Bills. We've talked about their young linebackers. Sanford is in his 2nd year. Nelson is 3rd. Haslett, a rookie. Robertson, of course, is the veteran at 9 years. But then they have Chris Keating, a rookie out of Maine. Tom Higgins, a rookie out of North Carolina State.
2nd and 4 for the Vikings.
A good, young, solid linebacking core with a little bit of seasoning thrown in with Robertson, a 9-year veteran.
2nd down, 4 coming up. White in motion. Miller getting to the 45. We got maybe a couple. Mike Cady, 71. Ben Williams, 77, make the tackle. And the clock now at 3:02. Buffalo has 2 timeouts remaining. The Vikings have 3, and the Vikings aren't interested in any timeouts right now. 3rd down, 3.
Big play for the Bills. If they got a chance of getting the ball back if they can hold Minnesota on this down.
3rd and 3 for the Vikings at their 45.
Up over the ball is Dennis Foley, the center. He's really played well this year for the Vikings. Play action. Kramer to Miller. Double the ball incomplete. 4th down coming up. Jim Haslett was putting the pressure on. Robert Miller juggling the ball on the sideline, could not gain possession. And the punting unit comes on for the Vikings with 2:29 remaining.
Kramer again a dejected man. You see his 12 completions, 32 attempts for only 104 yards. A far cry from last week where he set a personal high of 297 yards against the Rams. A good defensive ball club. He surely is disappointed with his performance, but right now Coleman is a man of most interest for the Vikings to see what kind of field position he can give to Buffalo with this punt.
And Coleman will kick it away to Keith Moody. Drives it high. Moody will field it on the 18. And flags go down as he is tackled back on the 10. Darrell Luce was down on the coverage. A kick of 37 yards. We saw a flag go up on the return. 2 minutes, 16 seconds left in this game. And the Vikings are leading by a score of 10-3. And the penalty will go against the Buffalo Bills, who have just been staggered by penalties throughout the afternoon, particularly earlier in the game when they were starting a series deep in their own territory. It seemed like every time they gained possession, they were deep in their own territory.
Well, they've made it tough on themselves all day today. Of course, Minnesota's defense had a lot to do with the way Buffalo was looking on offense, but you can't really expect to really be a good offensive team when you start out from your 6 or 7 yard line on many occasions during the course of a game.
Oakland is leading Cleveland 13-0.
Illegal use of hands. Receiving team during the kick, half the distance from the dead ball spot. First down.
So, illegal use of the hands. Collier and Hooks are the running backs. 3 wide receivers are in. Most of you will be switching with us to Oakland, where the Raiders lead the Cleveland Browns. We'll be out there for the conclusion of that exciting game. 1st and 10. The ball at the Buffalo 6. And Collier runs it out across the 20 to the 22, and we have another flag thrown. James White, the right tackle of Minnesota, I believe jumped the gun, but whether he was drawn up or not, we'll wait and find out. Or maybe it wasn't James White at all.
Offside. Defense 72. Penalty declined. First down.
James White offside of the play.
Trying to get a jump on Reggie McKenzie a little too early, but Buffalo again getting the ball out of a hole. They put themselves in a hole. They've had 11 penalties for 86 yards today so far. A good run that time and a bit of a break. Gets them the ball outside the 20-yard line. A little better field position with 2:14 to go.
Joe Ferguson, who drove the Bills in the last series and got 3 points out of it. Long way to go, but here's a fellow that can do it. 78 yards away. Collier, big yardage, breaking to the outside across the 40 and finally run out of bounds on the 43-yard line. So Mike Collier on the carry as Buffalo starts to move it on the ground with 2 minutes and 7 seconds left in this game.
Buffalo coming with these little quick-hitting plays. Collier getting up into the hole, eluding Blair, 59. Butler right there throwing a little shoulder into 27 Turner as Collier takes it out of bounds. Good run, stopping the clock, 2:07, plenty of time. Ball on the 43-yard line of Buffalo.
Paul Krause chased him out of bounds. First down, Buffalo. The Bills trail 10-3. Three wide receivers in. complete to Hooks coming out of the backfield. And did Hooks get out of bounds to stop the clock? We're near the 2-minute mark anyway. In fact, we are there. We're inside the 2-minute mark. He got the ball out near the midfield stripe. So Ferguson brings the Bills up. He's hit 16 out of 40 passes for 211 yards today. His counterpart, Tommy Kramer, 12 for 32, 104 yards. And Ferguson completes it to Frank Lewis near the Minnesota 40-yard line, and the clock continues to run. A gain of 15 yards and a first. A minute, 16 seconds left to play in Bloomington, Minnesota. Joe Ferguson driving the Buffalo Bills for the second time in this quarter. Took them for 3 points in the last drive. Second down 3 coming up for Buffalo. Just a little more than a minute left to play. Ferguson.
Picked off by number 20, Bobby.
Executive producer of NBC's football is Don Oldmeyer. Coordinating producer, Ted Nathanson. The telecast of today's game has been produced by Bill Peters, directed by Ted Nathanson, associate director, Howard Baio. Nice to welcome Bill Peters back home from the Twin Cities.
Certainly is.
Bill and Ted really giving us some great shots today, and who knows?
Discussion there when the play was over. We'll see if Ferguson decides to go to number 89, Pacone. He's on the inside of the slot on the right side of the street.
Third down 3. The heat is on. Ferguson gets it away. It's almost intercepted by number 27, John Turner, intended for Frank Lewis. And now Joe Ferguson is...
Buffalo with one time.
But the Bills have to pick up the first down. Fourth down 3, the ball on the 34-yard line of the Minnesota Vikings. So let's see what the Bills can come up with. They keep the 3 wide receivers in. Frank Lewis, Jerry Butler, and Lou Pacone. And Mike Collier. Curtis Brown has not returned to action. Fourth down. He did not make it. Joe Ferguson trying to carry that ball back up the middle. It almost looked like a design play.
Immediately, I would think he should have thrown short in that particular situation. Ferguson not really known as a great runner, and the Vikings not playing back that deep. As we look at the score here, Ferguson walking towards the sideline. Got to be a dejected young man, throwing for 227 yards, 18 for 42 today. But Joe not having a good day, not taking... Minnesota may have wrapped this one.
And 1 second left. And you know what's on Joe's mind right now? Boy, what a day. The Bills have just not been able to put it together. The Viking defense has been tough and no doubt inspired by the leadership of their captain, Jim Marshall, playing his last 19 here in Minnesota. And we have an injured Bill over on the sideline. And that is Mike Collier, I believe, number 35 it is. So Curtis Brown went out in the first half of the injury, and now Mike Collier. Arbit shaken up, and Jim Marshall comes back on the field. Here is Jim Marshall coming on with the offensive unit. And listen to the hand for this man, Jim Marshall.
Jim Marshall today, 2 unassisted tackles, 2 assists, 1.5 quarterback sacks, a super day, a great way to end a career at home. And Jim Marshall, who will now take a play on offense.
Jim Marshall will line up as the left tackle, number 70.
See, I keep telling you, Merle, all good defensive linemen want to be offensive linemen in their hearts.
And Kramer in killing the clock. And all offensive tackles want to be fullbacks, right?
All offensive tackles were fullbacks.
Did you play fullback in...
Once upon a time.
Well, the clock runs. 35 seconds left of the ball game, or will be here right now. The Bills, I believe, are just going to let it run. One timeout. We have one timeout remaining for Buffalo. Jim Marshall with his second play with the offensive unit.
All this noise is for that man right there, number 70, appreciated by everybody here as the crowd chants, Marshall, Marshall, Marshall.
Well,